Chapter 1565, The Cage of the Trapped Beast, The Doom of the Second Galaxy Army, Part 8. Master Windu was utterly perplexed by the current situation. What were the Doom and its commander, Severance Tan, planning? If Severance Tan intended to sacrifice herself with the Doom, it would be a foolish move, yet it seemed that wasn't the case. So how could one explain the current scenario? The Doom had been trapped in the Antway Galaxy, a region not known for its well-developed traffic routes. All possible escape routes were 3 hyperspace waterways, now controlled by the Republic fleet. Escape seemed impossible. A direct confrontation? The Doom was surrounded by only a few warships. Despite the Doom's formidable power and Severance Tan's strategic brilliance, the disparity in strength was overwhelming. Reinforcements? There were no separatist fleets nearby. The closest was General Grievous's fleet on the planet Salukami, the last lifeline of the Confederation of Independent Systems, and it was unlikely to move lightly. For Grievous's fleet to reach the Antway Galaxy, it would have to pass through the Fendel Galaxy, where Mace Windu's fleet was stationed. According to the latest intelligence, General Grievous had no intention of mobilizing from Salukami. Under these circumstances, Severance Tan's only hope seemed to be that each launch of the Doom's electromagnetic pulse cannon would inflict significant damage on the Republic fleet. This might create a slim chance to break through the Republic's blockade of hundreds of battleships and 2,300 small and medium warships. Mace Windu had used part of his fleet as bait, hoping to force Severance Tan to use the electromagnetic pulse cannon, thereby exposing her weakness to the bomber formation he led. However, Severance Tan chose to ignore the bait, refraining from firing and instead retreating to the asteroid belt. This left Mace Windu baffled. Without the electromagnetic pulse cannon, how did Severance Tan expect to defeat a fleet 10 times the size of hers? Yet the reality was clear. The Doom's EMP cannon remained silent, while its 500 medium-sized turbolaser cannons unleashed relentless fire. When some Republic warships entered optimal range, the Doom's firepower was devastating. Under such intense fire, the bomber formation led by Master Windu struggled to hold. While Windu himself might manage, other bombers were bound to falter under continuous high-intensity evasion. With 500 medium-sized turbo-laser cannons, any mistake meant instant destruction. "What the hell are you planning? Why?" Mace Windu gritted his teeth, his only intact eye blazing with fierce determination. His fighter jet flew past the Doom, revealing its massive, continent-like hull below. The ship's surface was densely packed with turbolaser turrets, continuously firing, mixed with near anti-laser cannons and anti-aircraft missiles. The comprehensive anti-aircraft firepower left no gaps. Boom! Another Y-wing bomber exploded. "Send me another formation of bombers. Stand by!" Mace Windu roared into the communicator. "Yes, General," Admiral responded. Sopnos, the fleet commander, responded promptly. However, before he could issue any orders, a soldier from the radar department rushed over, shouting, "General Sopnos, there is an important situation. Something serious has happened." "What's all the fuss about?" General Sopnos asked, not having had time to close his communication with Mace Windu. He turned around to face the soldier. "Speak, I'm listening too," Windu added. The radar soldier, visibly flustered, hesitated before finally saying, The Alliance of Neutrals has suddenly detected a large number of hyperspace fluctuations. This indicates spaceships jumping into hyperspace." "What are you talking about?" "Most of the Neutral Alliance's spaceships have been requisitioned by us. Why are there so many hyperspace fluctuations all of a sudden?" Master Windu demanded loudly. "There are signals in more than 200 galaxies. We have spaceships passing by 43 of them. According to the sensor scans, they are all battleships. They are battleships." The radar soldier shouted, almost in a state of collapse. "That's impossible. Where did the Alliance of Neutrals get battleships? What's the model?" Master Windu asked sharply. "The models have been confirmed. There are Javelin-class missile frigates, Cobalt Alloy-class heavy frigates, Brown Bear-class heavy destroyers, Revenge-class light destroyers, and Guard-class light air defense destroyers. All confirmed to be Separatist warships. All are small warships," the radar soldier reported loudly. "Wait a minute, the Tatako Galaxy has confirmed the signal of a Behemoth-class battlecruiser. They even have a capital ship. Confirmed. There is a capital ship. What's the matter with this sudden reinforcement? Admiral Sopnos was equally alarmed. Could it be conjured out of thin air? Mace Windu's face darkened further. There is only one possibility. These warships have always been hidden in those galaxies. Could it be that the Alliance of Neutrals has betrayed us? Admiral Sopnos speculated. Whether they have betrayed us or not, these battleships were hidden in their galaxy, and they must pay for it. Mace Windu said grimly. Judging by the detectable hyperspace fluctuations, how many battleships are there? The radar soldier quickly replied, We have a preliminary estimate of about 170 to 240 warships. Most of them appear to be small and medium-sized warships. Even with these reinforcements, Severance Tan's fleet is no match for us. Does she really think that with these small ships, she can rely on her command ability to defeat us? Mace Windu said coldly. According to our Supreme Strategic Command's previous analysis of Severance Tan, her commanding ability is mainly reflected in the control of formations. In the face of such a disparity in troop numbers, no matter how skilled she is, she won't be able to close the absolute gap in strength, Admiral Sopnos said, frowning. Chapter 566, The Cage of the Trapped Beast, The Doom of the Second Galaxy Army, Part 9. Mace Windu spoke in a deep voice. Don't panic, we still have an absolute advantage. No matter what means Severance Tan uses to hide this fleet, their numbers are limited. Seize this opportunity. We still have enough power to destroy them. Let us deploy a garrison across the galaxy and intercept these spaceships as much as possible. Standing on the bridge of the fleet flagship, the Hunter-class battlecruiser Endurance, Admiral Sopnos observed a different scene. On the wide-area holographic star map, hundreds of red light spots appeared simultaneously in the Neutral Alliance area, which was shocking. Correspondingly, there were only a few blue light spots representing the friendly fleet. Although he knew that the power of the fleet represented by each blue light spot was far greater than those red light spots, it still looked extremely daunting. Each red light spot represented a galaxy's attitude towards the Second Galaxy Army, hostility. There was no doubt that the power of the Second Galaxy Army far exceeded that of the Alliance of Neutrals, and it could easily crush them. However, the reason they hadn't done so was that they wanted to bring these planets under their control peacefully. Even with a little coercion, they aimed to control without direct use of force. But now, these red dots indicated that their strategy had completely failed. When they started chasing the Doom and later caught its tail, everyone, including Mace Windu, believed that they had woven a huge cage to trap the beast. But now, judging from the situation on the holographic star map, it was the Second Galaxy Army that was locked in the cage. Admiral Sopnos began to question his previous choice, whether it was right to leave the Galactic Republic and follow Master Windu into the hostile backcountry of the Neutral Alliance. In fact, the main reason why Admiral Sopnos was willing to work with Mace Windu was because he had just divorced his wife. His wife had been drugged during a company party. When she woke up the next day, she found herself lying on the bed of a wealthy family in the inner circle with several other women. The scene was extremely obscene and unbearable. Disheartened, Sopnos, who was still a lieutenant general at the time, could not accept this fact and chose to leave. He admitted that he was a coward, but he also understood that he had no strength to resist. Even though he was a lieutenant general, the family behind that noble boy could easily replace him. Sopnos himself was not a great talent, and he had become a lieutenant general mainly because some people in the judicial fleet were directly promoted after Speaker Schiff Palpatine established the Grand Republic Army. So in the end, Sopnos simply followed Master Windu. What he originally thought was that with the powerful force of the Second Galaxy Army, once he gained a firm foothold in the Alliance of Neutrals and even established his own kingdom, he would become a top nobleman in this kingdom. Then he could play with other people's wives and make others silent. But now, the harsh reality was in front of him. Even though the Second Galaxy Army was extremely powerful, it still could not deter those resisting forces. And now, he was really being watched by a famous player, Severance Tan, and her super battleship, the Conqueror class. The superimposed deterrence of these two names alone was enough to make most of the Republic's Navy generals fear, and the ordinary Sopnos even more so. When the tip of the iceberg of Severance Tan's plan was revealed, there was only fear in his heart. He wished he hadn't betrayed the Galactic Republic at this time. If only he, unable to fight, at least I can ask for help, and then the Republic will have an endless supply of warships and supplies. In fact, many officers and soldiers of the Second Galaxy Army at all levels think so too. General Tan. Except for 5 of the spaceships in ambush, the other spaceships have been successfully activated and are heading towards the Antway Galaxy. They are expected to arrive within 6 hours. On the bridge of the destroyer, the adjutant walked over to Severance Tan, gave a respectful military salute, and reported loudly. The command of war requires not only learning to do addition, but also to do subtraction, Severance Tan said, sitting on the main seat with her legs crossed. In the military literature of Dawn Star, tens of thousands of years ago, during the era of cold weapons, there were strategies of increasing troops and reducing stoves, and reducing troops and increasing stoves, which aligned perfectly with my plan. The adjutant showed an admiring smile. The general's plan is completely flawless. The Second Galaxy Army never expected that after each of our attacks, only the Doom itself would leave, while all other warships were hidden under the cover of the Sentinel-class electronic warfare frigate. The crew of those warships are all robots. After hiding, the engines are completely turned off and then activated at regular intervals. They can't find them at all. The hyperspace fluctuations caused by the super battleship destroyer also cover up other fluctuations, preventing the Republic's monitoring outpost from noticing that there were a few fewer battleships returning. The success of a strategy depends not only on the strategy itself, but also on psychology, environment, general situation, and human nature, Severance Tan explained. After the Second Galaxy Army broke away from the Republic, they have been in a state of anxiety, and their plunder of the Alliance of Neutrals has completely lost support here. At this time, when the super warships attack, they will focus all their attention on the Doom and ignore the few inconspicuous small spaceships carried by the Doom. Even if they are hidden, I will continue to probe and mislead to successfully achieve our goals. You all still have much to learn, she added with a chuckle. Yes, General Tan's command art is unparalleled, the adjutant hurriedly complimented. Part of it was flattery, but another part was genuine admiration, because Severance Tan had indeed moved an entire fleet to the star sector of the Alliance of Neutrals without anyone knowing. Although most of these warships are small and medium-sized, and many are old models ready to be phased out and retired, it is already a miracle to have accomplished this. Now these warships are quickly rushing towards the Antway Galaxy. At the same time, the main fleet of the Second Galaxy Army was frantically attacking the battleship Doom, which was already approaching the asteroid belt. In this asteroid belt, there were a large number of electromagnetic nebula. On the bridge of the Endurance, the flagship of the Second Galaxy Army, an engineer quickly approached Admiral Sopnos and reported, "General, according to our calculations, the destroyer may want to use the electromagnetic nebula for something." General Sopnos frowned. "I've always had this question in my mind. The Annihilation has a powerful electromagnetic pulse cannon, and now Severance Tan has been heading towards the electromagnetic nebula. She must have some conspiracy. According to our calculations, the electromagnetic pulse gun of the Annihilator may indeed be capable of detonating this electromagnetic nebula," said the engineer. Chapter 1567, The Cage of the Trapped Beast, The Doomsday of the Second Galaxy Army, Part 10. Detonate the electromagnetic nebula. Mace Windu frowned. "How much impact will it have?" It will cause a magnetic field explosion, but the overall energy won't be too large. It should interfere with our communication and radar systems. At most, it will affect the recooling cycle of our warship's deflector shields, speeding it up," the engineer explained. "Additionally, I suggest not letting our fighter formation enter the electromagnetic nebula. The electronic systems of the fighters can't withstand this level of magnetic field explosion." "So, you're saying this kind of magnetic field explosion won't render my fleet combat ineffective?" Mace Windu asked. "Magnetic field bursts are common in the universe. For example, stellar flares are also accompanied by magnetic field bursts. It's a basic precautionary factor considered in spacecraft design. The magnetic field explosion caused by the electromagnetic pulse gun might be more violent, so it can affect our battleships. But while it will have an impact, it won't make our fleet lose combat effectiveness, the engineer replied confidently. So, Severance Tan is just planning to use the magnetic field explosion to limit our fighter jets so that I can't lead the bomber formation to deal a fatal blow to her. Mace Windu pondered, frowning. I don't know much about combat, but I think that's true, the engineer admitted. Understood, I will consider it. Mace Windu waved his hand, then turned to General Sopnos. Let the fighter formations stay put for now. Adjust the fleet's formation to attack from as far away as possible, avoiding the electromagnetic nebula. I will continue to observe the situation here. If they really plan to detonate the electromagnetic nebula, I will make further considerations. Yes, sir. Admiral Sopnos nodded. The strange situation on the battlefield continued. The battleship Annihilation had entered the magnetic field nebula and was still bombarding the Republic fleet with conventional weapons. Coupled with the Behemoth-class battlecruisers guarding the surroundings, the powerful Yamato cannons were firing one after another. The Republic fleet was reluctant to engage them desperately before their troops were fully assembled. The fighting spirit of the Second Galaxy Army was already very low. Under such circumstances, it was normal for them to hesitate in the face of such a powerful enemy. The next phase was a race between the sublight speed engine and the hyperspace engine. The destroyer moved ahead of time, taking advantage of the scattered formation of Mace Windu's fleet, breaking through and flying towards the electromagnetic nebula in the asteroid belt. The other two parts of the main fleet of the Second Galaxy Army were still in pursuit. In other words, it would take some time for the Republic fleet to complete the encirclement of the destroyer. Facing the powerful firepower of the destroyer and the Behemoth class, although they had an absolute advantage in numbers, the captains of the Second Galaxy Army's warships were unwilling to be the first to rush forward and take the brunt of the attack. They promised to attack immediately, but kept using excuses such as irregular formation to delay. Everyone knew that with the combat capabilities of the destroyer and these behemoths, it would be too easy for them to take a few Jaeger-class battlecruisers down with them before they were destroyed. Mace Windu could only take a bomber formation to maneuver away from the Doom. He couldn't retreat because if he did, the Doom would undoubtedly fire its electromagnetic weapon immediately. The pulse cannon hummed ominously, but continuing to spend time here with Doom? As the Supreme Commander of the Second Galaxy Army, what does it look like to stay in the fighter like this all the time? The anger in his heart kept rising, but he had no choice but to wait. Meanwhile, the small and medium warships previously hidden by Severance Tan were quickly heading towards the Antway Galaxy through the hyperspace channel. The operators of these warships were all robots. Although clumsy, they were ruthless and undeterred in executing their goals. That afternoon, small and medium warships from the Principality of Dawn arrived in the Antway Galaxy one after another, joining the formation of the destroyer. Mace Windu ordered the fleet to send some warships to intercept them, but the effect was minimal. These small and medium-sized warships did not engage in combat, but flew around randomly, evading the Republic warships' attempts to intercept them. By nightfall, Milky Way Standard Time, the number of small and medium-sized warships from the Principality of Dawn in the Antway Galaxy had reached over 230, including an astonishing 80 Sentinel-class electronic warfare frigates. 2 hours later, Mace Windu, who was waiting for an opportunity among his fighters, suddenly received explosive news. The hyperspace outpost reported detecting a large-scale hyperspace fluctuation, and a reconnaissance plane observed the activities of a giant warship, 14,100 meters long. A ship of the same type as the Titan battleship Plague had appeared near the Yawan Galaxy and was likely heading towards the Fendel Galaxy. All the relevant personnel of the Second Galaxy Army who heard this information were dumbfounded. They all thought of a terrible possibility. The destroyer was delaying time because it was waiting for the arrival of the Titan battleship. Compared to the battleship Fang, the the sister ship of the destroyer, the existence of the plague was a lingering nightmare in the hearts of officers and soldiers of the Galactic Republic Navy. If targeted by the plague, even those serving on the commander-class dreadnoughts could only expect to be buried with their own battleship after a single shot. Ordinary soldiers didn't consider the cost of the plague's main gun firing a shot or the difficulty of aiming. They only focused on one point. If the plague was targeting them, they would definitely die. No one wanted to die. Just when Mace Windu ordered General Sopnos to strictly hide this information, the situation changed again. A wide-area communication directly covered the entire Antway galaxy and was sent to the communication of every battleship in the galaxy through the public channel. A majestic old man with white beard and hair appeared on the screen. He was the leader of the Confederation of Independent Galaxies, Earl Dooku, who had just officially become the first chairman of the Confederation. "I know you're listening, Mace Windu. I have to say, I'm so disappointed in you. As a Jedi Knight, you failed to turn the tide and instead let the Jedi Order continue on the wrong path. As a fallen person, you are just wandering around, not knowing where your goal is." Earl Dooku said coldly, "I am now on my new flagship, the second ship of the Ragnarok-class Titan battleship, the Shadow. Let me end your shameful life for you." Chapter 1568, The Cage of the Trapped Beast, The Doomsday of the Second Galaxy Army, Part 11. Initiate communication jamming immediately. Maximum power. Cut off this communication now. Mace Windu's voice was filled with urgency as he saw Count Dooku appear on the screen. First the Doom, then the Shadow, and now Count Dooku? The presence of these three names alone was enough to shatter the already fragile morale of the Second Galaxy Army's officers and soldiers at all levels. If these soldiers mutinied, the battle would be lost before it even began. Count Dooku, the Shadow. Mace Windu's face was grim. He felt as though he was ensnared in a terrible conspiracy. Difficult enemies kept appearing, and it seemed they were all targeting the Second Galaxy Army. "General Windu, we've detected the electromagnetic pulse gun of the destroyer charging." General Sopnos' voice crackled through the communication channel. The disadvantage of Mace Windu staying in the fighter jets was becoming apparent. He couldn't monitor the battle situation or respond from the bridge. All messages had to be relayed from the flagship. All bomber formations. "Follow me. We attack immediately." Mace Windu shouted into the communication. "General Windu, we've also detected interference. Enemy. Signal." General Sopnos' message was abruptly cut off by strong interference. The screen was filled with static, making it impossible to hear what he was saying. Mace Windu's heart sank. His intuition told him that Severance Tan's trump card had been revealed. "Keep up," Windu commanded through the communication. To ensure the message was received, he used his powerful force abilities to send instructions directly to the minds of all the pilots in the bomber formation. The communication was completely cut off. The only sound in the communicator was the noise of static. "This is bad." Mace Windu quickly checked the radar screen. The airborne radar was still operational, but it showed nothing behind his fighter. The bomber formations that had been following him were lost, unable to keep up. The Jedi-driven fighter jets were too fast and agile. In such circumstances, the fighter jets piloted by ordinary soldiers relied on navigation robots to keep up. But with communication cut off, the navigation robots couldn't receive instructions from Windu's fighter, leaving them lost. On this ever-changing battlefield, facing the powerful anti-aircraft firepower of the destroyer and its escorting warships, the only outcome for the lost bombers was to be blown to pieces. Without the Y-wing bombers, the two laser cannons on the ETA-2 fighter jets were useless against the destroyer. Mace Windu's heart sank further. He knew something must have happened to cut off all communication. Unable to stop the Doom from launching the electromagnetic pulse cannon, he had to return to his flagship, Endurance, to find out what was going on. Using the Force, Mace Windu locked onto his flagship and flew his fighter jet through the barrage of anti-aircraft fire, heading straight for Endurance. 10 minutes earlier, on the flagship of the Duchy of Dawn's fleet, the Destroyer. "Report to General Tan. All 80 Sentinel-class electronic warfare frigates are in place." The adjutant reported loudly. Transmit Count Dooku's communication through the wide area public channel, Severance Tan ordered with a stern smile. Mace Windu will definitely. Request to increase electronic interference immediately and cut off this communication, she commanded, waving her hand at the T-Series tactical robot beside her. Charge the directional electromagnetic pulse gun. The engineering department will calculate the optimal launch time and fire as soon as the threshold is reached. Trigger a magnetic field explosion in the electromagnetic nebula. The Sentinel electronic warfare frigate will lock on to the Republic fleet's interference signal, then use the energy from the magnetic field explosion to amplify and counter-interfere with their communications. I want them all silence. Roger, the T-Series tactical robot nodded. Severance Tan turned to her adjutant. Notify all warships to reorganize. Once we've cut off the Second Galaxy Army's communications, it's time to hunt. At that moment, the screen in front of her flickered, and the projection of Count Dooku appeared. He looked at Severance Tan and said, Your plan seems to be progressing smoothly, General Tan. The shadow is near the Yawan galaxy. I will not advance further, nor will I risk this Titan battleship, which is not in optimal condition, in battle. If you're interested in Mace Windu, I suggest you come here in person. Otherwise, a Jedi Knight of his caliber could turn the tables at any moment, Severance Tan advised. Do you still think he is a Jedi Knight? Ha! Mace Windu now calls himself a blood warrior. This nondescript figure, neither light nor dark. Just like before, he was neither a true Jedi Knight nor a true politician. Windu will undoubtedly bear the responsibility for the destruction of the Jedi Knights. I will take great pleasure in killing him with my own hands, Count Dooku said proudly. I will pilot the shuttle myself. Do not die until then, General Tan. Count Dooku ended the communication. Simultaneously, the pre-recorded message he had sent to Severance Tan was being broadcast to every spaceship in the Antway galaxy through a wide-area public channel. The Republic fleet, caught off guard, immediately intensified their communication interference, attempting to cut off the transmission. Whether the message was true or not, it was enough to disturb their troops' morale. At this critical juncture, 80 Sentinel-class electronic warfare frigates locked on to the Republic fleet's electronic interference frequency band. Normally, it would be impossible for 80 Sentinel-class ships to breach the Republic fleet's communication defenses. However, the high-energy directional electromagnetic pulse gun of the destroyer battleship had charged to about 47%. According to the engineer's calculations, the conditions were met. Severance Tan decisively ordered, Fire! The powerful electromagnetic pulse emitted by the high-energy directional electromagnetic pulse gun immediately interacted with the electromagnetic field of the large electromagnetic nebula, triggering a chain reaction. An extremely violent magnetic field burst was instantly activated. Seizing this opportunity, the 80 Sentinel-class electronic warfare frigates implemented anti-jamming measures against the Republic fleet. Because the Republic fleet was also jamming communications, this anti-jamming directly affected their communication frequency band, causing widespread disruption. Chapter 1569, The Cage of the Trapped Beast, The End of the Second Galaxy Army. Those who are generals and do not know astronomy, geography, do not read formation maps, and do not understand the situation of troops are mediocre. Textbook of the Military Academy of the Fourth Reich, Army, Preface. Communication was disrupted, leaving the main fleet of the Second Galaxy Army completely blind and mute. They could still confirm the battlefield situation through sensors and radar, but without communication, they lost unified deployment. This would be manageable against ordinary opponents, but unfortunately, standing opposite them was Severance Tan, who had ascended to the throne of the galaxy's top general with one brilliant victory after another since the war's outbreak. Hold on, General Sopnos shouted on the bridge. Our forces are still superior. Order all ships to maintain formation and not scatter. Restore communication as soon as possible. Send shuttles to every battleship to convey my orders face to face. Despite his commands, anxiety gnawed at him. He approached the holographic star map and asked, What is the Separatist fleet doing now? They are gathering. The battleship destroyer has sailed out of the electromagnetic nebula. The radar operator replied immediately. Damn it! They want to take the initiative to attack. No, this formation. We will be defeated one by one in this formation. The opponent is Severance Tan. Admiral Sopnos slammed the console in frustration. No way. Call the shuttles back, modify the order, and have the ships move closer to each other. General, the first batch of shuttles has already taken off. The adjutant was sweating profusely. Call them back, don't you understand? Admiral Sopnos was furious. General, our communication has been completely paralyzed, the adjutant said, implying that recalling the shuttles was impossible. The chief of staff interjected, General, if our warships move closer to each other, the enemy has the destroyer. That electromagnetic pulse gun. A deathly silence fell over the bridge. That's it. Is Master Windu in contact? Admiral Sopnos asked, covering his forehead. General, our communication has been completely paralyzed, the adjutant repeated. I know! I know! I know! Sopnos roared hysterically. On the bridge of the destroyer, Severance Tan sat calmly, twirling a pointer in her hand. Fire the directional high-energy electromagnetic pulse cannon once, disrupt their formation, and then attack directly. General Tan, the Second Galaxy Army still has an absolute advantage. Shouldn't we prepare more? For example, let the Sentinel-class electronic warfare frigate interfere with their fire control system. The adjutant cautiously suggested. Are you an idiot? Severance Tan glared at him. If you can't do the job of an adjutant, you can retire and farm when you go back. No, General Tan, I just want to be cautious, the adjutant stammered. The battlefield is ever-changing, and there is no such thing as a safe way, Severance Tan snorted. During previous operations, I have tested it thoroughly. The opponent's commander is mediocre. Truly capable officers naturally rise in this war era. How could such a person follow Mace Windu to rebel? Those who follow him are merely those who believe their talents are underappreciated. The battle raged on, with Severance Tan's strategic brilliance shining through. The Second Galaxy Army, despite its numerical superiority, found itself outmaneuvered and outclassed. The electromagnetic pulse cannon fired, disrupting their formation and leaving them vulnerable to a coordinated assault. Admiral Sopnos watched in despair as his fleet crumbled. The lack of communication and the enemy's relentless assault left him with no options. Severance Tan's forces closed in, sealing the fate of the Second Galaxy Army. In the end, the battlefield was littered with the wreckage of once mighty ships. Severance Tan stood victorious, her reputation as the galaxy's top general further solidified. The Second Galaxy Army was no more, and the war continued to rage on, with new battles and new challenges awaiting on the horizon. The Second Galaxy Army were still hesitating, unsure of how to respond without clear communication. The chaos was palpable, and Severance Tan's strategy was working flawlessly. Severance Tan's adjutant, still sweating profusely, could only watch in awe as his commander executed her plan with ruthless precision. He knew that in her eyes, there was no room for mediocrity or hesitation. She demanded excellence and quick thinking, qualities that were evidently lacking in the Republic's forces at this moment. Adjutant, relay my orders to all units. We will not give them a moment to regroup, Severance Tan commanded, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. We will press our advantage and show them the true meaning of tactical superiority. The destroyer continued its relentless assault, its medium-sized turbolaser cannons firing in rapid succession, creating a deadly barrage that the Second Galaxy Army struggled to withstand. The directional electromagnetic pulse guns added to the chaos, their discharges causing further disarray among the Republic's ranks. The Cobalt-class frigates, acting as decoys, drew enemy fire away from the more vulnerable ships. Meanwhile, the Javelin-class missile frigates launched their payloads from a distance, their missiles streaking through space to strike at key targets. The Brown Bear-class heavy destroyers maneuvered with agility, flanking the enemy and delivering punishing blows to their exposed sides. Within the formation, the Guard-class anti-aircraft destroyers maintained a vigilant watch, ready to intercept any incoming threats from the air. The Apocalypse-class light cruisers, nimble and swift, intercepted smaller enemy vessels, preventing them from joining forces with the larger ships. At the heart of the assault, the Behemoth-class battlecruisers unleashed the devastating power of their Yamato cannons. Each shot was a calculated strike, aimed at the most strategically significant targets within the Second Galaxy Army's fleet. The dynamic judgment required for such precision was a testament to Severance Tan's unparalleled command skills. Despite the overwhelming firepower and tactical brilliance displayed by Severance Tan's forces, the Republic's warships remained largely immobilized, their crews paralyzed by the lack of communication and the sheer ferocity of the attack. The once formidable Second Galaxy Army was now a disorganized and vulnerable target. As the battle raged on, Severance Tan's confidence grew. She knew that victory was within her grasp, and she was determined to seize it. Her eyes gleamed with a fierce determination as she continued to direct her forces with unwavering resolve. "Let this be a lesson to them," she muttered under her breath. "In the art of war, there is no room for hesitation or doubt. Only those who can adapt and strike with precision will emerge victorious." The destruction of the 3 Jaeger-class battlecruisers was a significant blow to the Republic's morale. The remaining ships, witnessing the swift and brutal dismantling of their comrades, began to falter. Panic set in, and the once cohesive fleet started to fragment further. Severance Tan seized the opportunity, ordering her forces to press the attack even harder. The destroyer led the charge, its weapons blazing as it tore through the enemy's defenses. The coordinated assault from her fleet left the Republic's warships with little chance to regroup or mount a counteroffensive. In the end, the battle was a testament to Severance Tan's strategic genius and the unwavering discipline of her forces. The Second Galaxy Army, once a formidable opponent, was now in shambles, its ships either destroyed or in full retreat. As the last remnants of the Republic's fleet fled the battlefield, Severance Tan allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. She had proven once again that in the realm of warfare, her command was unmatched. The art of command, as she had demonstrated, was not just about strength, but about the ability to outthink and outmaneuver the enemy at every turn. "Adjutant," she called, her voice calm and composed. "Prepare a report of our victory. Let it be known that today we have shown the galaxy what true leadership looks like." The adjutant, still in awe of his commander's prowess, nodded and set to work. He knew that under Severance Tan's leadership, they were destined for greatness. The Second Galaxy Army woke up as if from a dream, suddenly rushing in for reinforcements from all directions. The once neat formation quickly descended into chaos. They entered the second stage of reaction after the communication failure, running towards wherever the accident happened. It was like a football game where one side had tactics and training, while the other had no cooperation. The uncooperative players would chase the ball wherever it went, not knowing where to run effectively without it. Instinctively, they chose the plan with the least possible mistakes: run with the ball. Naturally, the well-trained opponent would pass through the defense with a few long passes and then single out the goalkeeper. This is exactly what Severance Tan was doing. The reinforcements' battleships were completely controlled by robots, even the Behemoth-class battlecruisers. This allowed all the systems of the battleship to be shut down and cooperate with the Sentinel-class electronic warfare frigate to hide. However, under robot control, these battleships were very rigid. The advantage was that they would follow orders without hesitation, even if it meant certain death. Severance Tan was prepared to sacrifice even the Behemoth-class battlecruisers driven by robots. To eliminate the Second Galaxy Army, such a loss was acceptable to her. She had meticulously prepared to keep the Second Galaxy Army in a state of turmoil through constant harassment by the Doom. She hid a large number of small and medium-sized warships near the Neutral Alliance and secretly instigated a large number of planets. This caused Mace Windu and Sopnos to misjudge the strength gap between the two sides, leading them to divide their fleet into 3 and launch an active attack on the destroyer. Even now, part of the Second Galaxy Army's fleet remained stationed on the planet Mandalorian and the planet Garros IV as a precaution. About half of their fleet was actively attacking the Doom, which allowed the destroyer a chance to defeat the opponent. Through careful planning, Severance Tan ensured that this half of the fleet, led by Mace Windu, would launch an attack even if they were not in optimal condition, laying another layer of guarantee for final victory. With her excellent prediction and command abilities, She advanced instead of retreating when facing the overwhelmingly superior enemy fleet. She penetrated Mace Windu's main formation, entered the electromagnetic nebula, and prevented the opponent's fleet from gathering for a siege. Finally, she detonated the electromagnetic nebula, triggering a magnetic field explosion and counter-jamming the communication system of the Second Galaxy Army fleet. Despite all her efforts, Severance Tan still had to confront the overwhelming strength of the Second Galaxy Army head-on. As she said, there is no real security on the battlefield. Even with her plan and confidence, this was the best she could do. Who wouldn't want to interfere with the fire control system while disrupting the enemy's communication? But for a strategist like Severance Tan, this was enough. The Separatist fleet under her command had truly become a hungry wolf. Her command was meticulous, almost down to every battleship. Because most of these battleships were controlled by robots, she had to give orders down to the most detailed aspects, including steering angles and shield power. The battlefield had stretched very long due to the scattered arrangement of the Second Galaxy Army, with a width of almost 200,000 kilometers. But, to Severance Tan, this enormous battlefield was just a chessboard. She manipulated it with precision and strategy, orchestrating every move to her advantage. Hundreds of chess pieces moved simultaneously with a speed, imagination, and logical thinking that ordinary people couldn't even fathom. On the battlefield, a Victory-class Star Destroyer was under siege by dozens of smaller warships. Missiles launched from Javelin-class missile frigates continuously exploded against the Star Destroyer's shields. 2 Apocalypse-class light cruisers stayed behind the Star Destroyer, avoiding its main guns while firing relentlessly. The fighter formations of the Second Galaxy Army attempted to attack the Javelins, but were intercepted by Separatist triple fighters and Guard-class air defense destroyers. Despite suffering significant losses, they managed to destroy only 1 Javelin. At this moment, 4 Brown Bear-class heavy destroyers suddenly accelerated from hundreds of kilometers away. Simultaneously, all Separatist firepower concentrated on the side of the Victory-class ship. The Brown Bear-class heavy destroyer was not known for its agility. It boasted heavy armor and rapid-fire electromagnetic guns, which, while powerful, lacked accuracy. However, the Brown Bear class had another notable feature: exceptional straight-line speed. Once their engines entered an overloaded state, these destroyers closed the distance of hundreds of kilometers in mere seconds. Almost perfectly timed, the Apocalypse-class light cruiser struck the side shield of the Victory-class Star Destroyer, causing it to overload. In a face-to-face confrontation, the 300mm caliber rapid-fire electromagnetic guns on the Brown Bears unleashed hundreds of heavy projectiles within seconds, all hitting their mark. The outer armor of the Victory-class Star Destroyer was immediately breached, creating a massive hole. One of the Brown Bears didn't slow down and crashed directly into the opening. This 290-meter-long heavy destroyer transformed into a super cannonball, piercing from the port side of the Victory class to its center under immense acceleration, triggering a violent explosion. Witnessing this, 7 or 8 Jaeger-class battlecruisers nearby quickly turned to reinforce, accompanied by a pair of fighter formations. However, halfway through, a dazzling flash of lightning struck, and 3 Jaeger-class ships, along with hundreds of fighter jets, were hit by electromagnetic pulses, causing electronic component failures and paralysis. Seizing this opportunity, the dozens of small warships immediately withdrew from the battlefield and targeted another lone Jaeger-class ship 5,000 kilometers away. This Jaeger-class ship had been isolated because other warships had moved to reinforce the now destroyed Victory-class Star Destroyer, creating a brief gap in the formation. This was the moment the Separatists had been waiting for. Like a pack of cunning wolves, they attacked without communication or command, steadily eroding the scattered Second Galaxy Army, which resembled a herd of ferocious cattle being picked off one by one. Thanks for the 2,000 starting coins rewarded by the Tactics Master. Apologies for the delay in updates. I fell asleep without realizing it. Sorry to those who were waiting for the refresh. Chapter 1570, Master of Darkness, Windu. When Mace Windu piloted his fighter back to his fleet's flagship, the Hunter-class battlecruiser Endurance, he was nearly shot down by his own anti-aircraft fire. Although the fire control system and the identification friend or foe device were still operational, the loss of communication made the nervous turret operators fire at every target that appeared on the radar. This was a massive battlefield, spanning over 200,000 kilometers, where a fighter jet was as insignificant as a grain of sand in the ocean. Under normal circumstances, visual identification on an interstellar battlefield is nearly impossible. Even spotting a large battleship is a challenge. After the communication system was cut off, the fighter formations of the Second Galaxy Army were hit the hardest. The small size of the fighter jets prevented them from carrying large, advanced radar and communication systems. They often relied on their motherships for command and guidance. With communication severed, all fighter jets became headless chickens. For the pilots, the situation was dire. They found themselves in the vastness of space, surrounded by darkness, with sporadic light spots flickering occasionally. They couldn't tell if these lights were stars or capital ships being blown up. The most terrifying aspect was the turbo laser beams and missiles flying from unknown directions, making defense impossible. There was a high probability that these were fired by their own warships. If the communication system were functional, continuous commands and data would be sent directly to the navigation robots. Information such as which area their battleship was covering with firepower, where the main gun was firing, and the direction of enemy fighters would be clear. Without this data, the fighter pilots had no choice but to fly towards any visible spaceship. The braver ones flew towards enemy warships, hoping to go all out, while the more cautious ones flew towards their own warships. However, the closer they got to these warships, the higher the risk of being hit by friendly or enemy fire. Every capital ship was surrounded by a barrage of firepower, whether it was firing at others or being fired upon. In the previous battle, the Second Galaxy Army launched over 5,000 fighter jets. Less than 1/10 of these fighters managed to return to their motherships safely. Until communication was restored, they dared not launch more fighters. Consequently, most of the 20,000 fighter jets carried by the main fleet of the Second Galaxy Army became debris when the Hunter-class battlecruisers they were parked on were destroyed. Mace Windu didn't wait for his fighter to stop. He jumped out and rushed to the bridge. However, the scene inside the bridge was not as busy and orderly as he had imagined. Instead, the fleet commander, Admiral Sopnos, and officers at all levels were sitting in their seats, looking dejected. "What the hell are you doing?" Mace Windu roared. He stormed up and waved his hands, using the force to blow the despondent officers to their knees. "The battle of the entire fleet is in your hands. Look at what you're doing now." "It's useless. It's useless," Sopnos muttered as he sat up from the ground, looking defeated. "The communication has been cut off. We can't do anything. We can only watch as Severance Tan's fleet wipes us out bit by bit." We should be honored to lose to Severance Tan, right, Master Windu?" The anger in Windu's heart surged. He raised his hand and grabbed Sopnos, lifting him off the ground. Mace Windu grabbed Sopnos by the neck and lifted him effortlessly into the air. "Second Galaxy Army, there is no place for useless individuals like you," he declared. Despite his dire situation, Sopnos, disheartened but defiant, struggled and managed to say, "Master Windu, the second ship of the plague is on its way. Surrender. You can't win." Undermining the morale of the army. Death penalty. Mace Windu's grip tightened, and a faint golden light flickered in his intact eye. The sickening crack, Sopnos' neck snapped, and his body went limp, lifeless. The entire bridge fell silent. Every eye was on Mace Windu, but the respect once held for the Jedi Master had turned to fear. They no longer saw a revered leader. They saw a bloodthirsty beast. The dark side of the Force erupted from Mace Windu. In the moment he killed Sopnos, he had completely abandoned his belief in the light. Since being grievously injured by the dead angel and Depa Billaba on the planet Harun Kal, Mace Windu had been teetering between darkness and light. His body, paralyzed, had regained mobility only through mechanical transformation. Once, his faith in the light was unshakable, impervious to any temptation. This unwavering belief allowed him to master Vapad, a form of lightsaber combat that harnessed the emotions of the dark side to enhance its power without succumbing to the darkness itself. Practitioners of Vapud, like Depa Balaba and Sorabulk, had fallen to the dark side, but Mace Windu had remained steadfast. However, the revelation that Sheev Palpatine, the Speaker of the Republic, was the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, nearly shattered his faith. As the Jedi most deeply entangled in the politics of the Galactic Republic, Mace Windu felt the betrayal more acutely than anyone else. The realization that the leader he had served loyally was a Sith Lord was utterly unacceptable to him. Subsequent failures on the front lines pushed him to extremes. In the early orbital bombings, several Jedi Masters had agreed to sign off on the attacks, largely due to his covert approval. Though he still claimed to be a guardian of the light, he was inexorably drawn closer to the dark side. He even accepted Master Ki-Adi-Mundi, who had fallen to the dark side, as his right-hand man to co-command the fleet of the Second Galaxy Army, an unthinkable move for his former self. His relationship with Master Yoda deteriorated. After Yoda's failed assassination attempt on Palpatine and subsequent disappearance, followed by Anakin Skywalker's betrayal and Order 66, the complete destruction of the Jedi Order became the final straw. Now, the catastrophic defeat of the Second Galaxy Army had sealed his fate. Mace Windu had become a dark Jedi Master. The strength of his former belief in the light only made his fall swifter and more profound. Standing in the center of the bridge, Mace Windu kicked Sopnos' body into a corner. His golden eyes swept over the surrounding officers as he coldly commanded, "Return to your posts. We fight to the last man." Chapter 1571, Destruction. Even Mace Windu couldn't reverse this corrupt situation. In fact, he couldn't do much when he returned to the flagship. The Second Galaxy Army fleet, whose communication system was interfered with, faced a crushing defeat despite Windu's fury. Under the command of Severance Tan, the Second Galaxy Army, fighting independently, was no match for the Separatists. The Republic's warships, scattered and disorganized, were divided and surrounded by smaller Separatist warships, leading to their systematic destruction. To an outsider, it might have seemed like Severance Tan had the upper hand, but in reality, she was outnumbered and outgunned. Yet, she managed to encircle the larger Second Galaxy Army with her smaller fleet. This slow and brutal process was torturous. The commanders of the Second Galaxy Army could only watch helplessly as their warships were besieged and torn apart by the Separatist fleet. With communications cut off, they couldn't even send a word of encouragement to their troops. Many warships had attempted to provide reinforcements, but the Separatist fleet, utilizing their superior maneuverability, easily bypassed the main force of the Republic fleet. They roamed the battlefield, picking off isolated warships one by one. The Behemoth-class battlecruiser, with its powerful Yamato cannon, dominated the battlefield. Even the Jaeger-class battlecruiser couldn't withstand its attacks. Any warship attempting to reinforce was quickly neutralized by the Yamato cannon. In the current state of the battle, the Second Galaxy Army had no chance of victory. They could only gather in despair, forming small groups with nearby warships, clinging to their last hope. In a competitive game, defense might win championships, but this was a brutal war. Any attempt to avoid defeat only delayed the inevitable. War meant life and death. On the battlefield, the warships of the Second Galaxy Army were in full retreat. They were forced to head towards the closest warships, forming small defensive positions, hoping to inflict enough damage on the enemy to force negotiations. Their only hope was that the enemy would cease their attacks for some unforeseen reason, such as running out of ammunition, a sudden mutiny, or intervention by a third-party alien force. These were desperate, almost fantastical hopes. In reality, the Second Galaxy Army was doomed. The fleet entered a third stage after losing communication, gathering into small groups, increasing their defensive strength and making it difficult for the enemy fleet to chase and destroy them. They were slowly walking towards their demise. Back on the bridge of the flagship Endurance, Mace Windu could do little more than prolong the inevitable. Without a functioning communication system, his combat orders couldn't reach other warships. The only way to convey orders was verbally through shuttles, a method that was impractical and ineffective. By the time the latest combat instructions reached other warships, the situation on the battlefield would have already changed. The Second Galaxy Army was trapped in a slow, agonizing defeat, surrounded by the smaller but more agile Separatist fleet under Severance Tan's command. Lily might be cold. Mace Windu studied the battlefield situation on the holographic star map, observing Severance Tan's strategic use of small warships to maximize flexibility and maneuverability. She divided and encircled his fleet, destroying them one by one. Now, he finally understood the despair General Sopnos had felt earlier. There was truly no possibility of winning. Send a shuttle to notify every battleship as quickly as possible. Order them to immediately cease all combat operations and withdraw from the battlefield, Mace Windu commanded. Yes, sir, the adjutant responded promptly. All the officers who had witnessed Mace Windu kill General Sopnos were now gripped by fear, and none dared to question Master Windu's orders. However, even this order to retreat seemed like a luxury. Severance Tan was no mediocre strategist, Lee Sopnos. When she launched her attack, she had already anticipated all possible reactions from the Second Galaxy Army fleet, including their retreat and attempts to flee. Under Severance Tan's orders, all the fighter planes of the Duchy of Dawn's fleet took off, intercepting every Second Galaxy Army shuttle attempting to deliver orders. They couldn't even convey the simplest commands. In this atmosphere of despair, a Jaeger-class battlecruiser chose to surrender. The officer in charge lowered the shields, turned off the fire control systems, and handed over their fate to the Separatists. This was just the beginning. More and more warships began to surrender, and soon it became unstoppable. The morale of the Second Galaxy Army finally collapsed. They had never had much fighting spirit to begin with. They had followed Mace Windu in betrayal, coerced by the majority, and driven by fear of the Purge campaign that had executed all dissidents. Now, seeing the Second Galaxy Army cornered in just a few days, they lost all hope in Mace Windu's promises. Faced with such circumstances, they had only two options: surrender or resist to the last person. Meanwhile, a Geonosian shuttle with its solar sail unfurled left the hyperspace lane and arrived at the Doom. Count Dooku opened the shuttle door and stepped out first, followed by two figures in black cloaks that completely covered their forms. Arriving at the bridge of the destroyer, Count Dooku witnessed several Aquitens-class light cruisers of the Second Galaxy Army surrendering. He laughed heartily. "Ha! You have proven it once again, General Severance Tan. In this galaxy, you are the #1 general. This battle doesn't even qualify to make me feel nervous. It lacks any real challenge. What I defeated was merely a group of desperate dogs," Severance Tan replied lightly. Chapter 1572, Beheading Operation. Mace Windu has fallen to the dark side. "I can feel it," Count Dooku murmured, staring intently through the porthole. Outside, the vast expanse of the dark universe stretched endlessly. The nearest battleship was over 2,000 kilometers away, far beyond the limits of human vision. Yet, in the realm of the Force, Count Dooku could clearly perceive a blazing black flame in that direction. "Dark Master, Mace Windu, the reason I came here in person is because of him," Count Dooku sneered. "There's nothing more thrilling than crushing the last hope of a fallen warrior. Ha ha!" Mace Windu aims to use the power of the Second Galaxy Army to establish his own sphere of influence within the Alliance of Neutrals and on the planet Mandalore. He wants to transform the Jedi Order into a warlord faction with real power, but clearly, he lacks the capability, Severance Tan explained. The Second Galaxy Army always has the potential to be reorganized by the Galactic Republic, so eliminating them is our best option. "When shall we set off?" Count Dooku inquired. "I have locked on to the position of their flagship, Endurance. During the recent tactical maneuver, although Endurance remained at the core of their formation, they failed to notice that the nearest warship to them had quietly moved 10,000 kilometers away," Severance Tan said, tracing a line on the holographic star map. "I can attack them at any time." "Ha! As expected of our #1 general, you can even control the opponent's movements?" Count Dooku laughed heartily. "It's quite simple. When the enemy's communication is cut off, their behavior patterns become predictable, driven by psychology and human nature," Severance Tan replied coldly, stroking her long hair. "For a layman like you, it might be hard to understand, but at the Naval Academy, it's just a sophomore class. Count Dooku, slightly taken aback by Tan's arrogance and sharp tongue, maintained his composure. I think we can go and give Windu a break now. I will not rashly face an enraged Jedi Knight, especially one as powerful and skilled as Mace Windu. The reason I haven't launched an attack yet is that I don't want to give him the opportunity to fight back, Severance Tan said indifferently. Let me confirm again, are you truly ready to kill him? Since her near-death experience at the hands of Shen Zhan, Severance Tan had become extremely cautious in every battle with the Jedi Knights. She would never confront a Jedi Knight unless absolutely necessary, even if the opponent seemed to be on the brink of death. I have prepared a secret weapon. Mace Windu's head will be severed today and sent to the Laxus Exhibition Hall. Count Dooku declared proudly, You just need to get me there. Severance Tan didn't respond verbally, but turned to the T-Series tactical robot beside her. Maximize engine output, left rudder 17 degrees. 3rd and 7th tactical formations, follow immediately. Guard-class air defense destroyer, provide fire support. Launch an attack on the opponent's flagship. Roger. The adjutant who had made foolish remarks earlier was nowhere to be seen on the bridge of the destroyer. Under Tan's command, the entire fleet was in peak condition. With a single order, the massive 4,825-meter-long hull of the destroyer completed its turn, and over 50 small and medium-sized warships followed suit. As they turned, the formation shifted seamlessly. The smaller warships around the destroyer resembled tiny piranhas swimming around a colossal blue whale, small and slight, yet incredibly ferocious. The claw formation was complete, ready to encircle the flagship Endurance, where Mace Windu was located. The plan was to cut off the support of the Endurance from other warships and destroy it in one decisive strike. The Second Galaxy Army fleet was slow to respond to this sudden and decisive tactical maneuver by the destroyer. They had already begun to gather into small groups, lingering on, especially wary of the seemingly invincible battleship Destro. Yet, no matter how far they could hide, they didn't dare to confront it head-on. The destroyer drove straight towards the Endurance. The crew on the Endurance noticed the movement of the Doom on their radar, but they had no choice but to dodge as much as possible, steering the battleship towards the nearest friendly ship. At this moment, Severance Tan was already giving the command to attack. Electromagnetic pulse gun, enter attack position, and start charging, she ordered. Roger, Roger. The B-1 combat robot controlling the battleship immediately operated the console. The disc-shaped device on the side of the Doom began to gather countless lights. Mace Windu stood on the bridge of the Endurance, his eyes full of cruel killing intent. I'm right here, waiting for you to kill me, Dooku, he muttered. Fire! Severance Tan yelled. Roger, Roger! The B-1 battle droid slammed down the button with its 3-fingered arm. A dazzling electric light flashed, instantly expanding into a power grid covering tens of thousands of meters in the empty cosmic space. It continued to spread, reaching distances beyond the naked eye's observation in an instant. The destructive electromagnetic pulse within it expanded to a massive energy field, stretching thousands of kilometers. Inside the Endurance, almost all the lighting and electronic equipment exploded in a shower of electric sparks and then went dark. The red emergency lighting flickered on, and the backup systems activated to ensure that the life support system, gravity system, basic energy system, and power system of the battleship remained operational. We were hit! No, the destroyer is here. He's coming to kill us. The officers and soldiers on the bridge were in a state of panic. A hum filled the air, and a purple light suddenly lit up, instantly calming the chaotic bridge. It was Mace Windu's iconic purple lightsaber. Everyone on the bridge fell silent, their eyes filled with terror as they looked at the Jedi Master who had fallen to the dark side. Everyone, take up arms and fight until the last moment, Windu said calmly. The time to be loyal to the country has arrived. The country? How can we have a country now? A staff officer whispered. Mace Windu turned his back to him, a cruel smile playing on his lips. In the next second, the purple lightsaber flashed, and a head suddenly flew up. Chapter 1573, Dooku vs. Windu, Part 1. As Severance Tan gave the order to fire, Count Dooku, who was observing from the sidelines, nodded approvingly. All right, let's proceed. If Mace Windu manages to escape in a fighter jet, capturing him will become exceedingly difficult, he remarked. Turning to the two men in black robes who had been standing respectfully behind him, he instructed, "Ensure our secret weapon is ready. Windu is formidable and not an easy opponent. The beast is in peak condition and craves a strong adversary to prove its strength," said the man in black on the left. "Master Sola Balk trained it well. Even he was injured in a battle with this beast," added the man in black on the right. Count Dooku glanced back at Severance Tan and said, "Then, please continue your hunt, General Tan. I would like to congratulate you in advance. The Second Galaxy Army will be another feather in your cap. My promise stands. If you choose to come to Laxus, the position of General Grievous's Supreme Military Commander will be yours." Severance Tan remained non-committal, and Count Dooku did not wait for her response. He turned away from the bridge and walked towards the hangar. Count Dooku's Geonosian solar sail shuttle took off from the hangar of the destroyer and headed towards the Hunter Endurance, which had lost most of its power. Most of its turrets were non-functional, and the deflector shield could not be raised. The Bing-class battlecruiser flew away. At this moment, the destroyer had already positioned itself above the Endurance. In front of the 4,825-meter-long battleship, the Endurance appeared as insignificant as a cat standing next to a tiger. The 500 medium-sized turbo laser cannons on the Doom opened fire. The dense barrage of turbo laser beams rained down on the Endurance. Without the protection of the deflector shield, the armor of the Jaeger-class battlecruiser became its last line of defense. Clearly, the Hunter-level armor was insufficient to withstand such powerful firepower. Countless fragments shattered, and many compartments began to burst into flames and smoke. The hangar door of the Endurance was tightly closed, but a large hole was blasted open by the destroyer's gunfire. The Geonosian solar sail spacecraft flew directly through the hole with unparalleled precision. The hatch of the spacecraft opened, and a burly figure jumped down. This was a yellow-skinned Zabrak. He had a fierce appearance, with numerous ferocious long horns on his head and black battle patterns painted all over his body. He wore heavy armor. Upon landing, a blood-red double-edged lightsaber ignited in his hand. The color of the lightsaber, combined with the red emergency lighting inside the battleship, created the impression of being in a sea of blood. As the Zabrak appeared, the panicked Marines inside the Endurance opened fire. However, he did not dodge or flinch, allowing the blaster beams to strike him. The thick armor he wore blocked all the shots, leaving him unscathed. The Zabrak grinned ferociously, then suddenly rushed forward, appearing in front of the soldiers with lightning speed. With a swift motion of his lightsaber, several soldiers were immediately cut in two. But he didn't stop there. The Zabrak continued to swing his lightsaber wildly until the soldiers were chopped into countless pieces. "It's a monster." The remaining soldiers, terrified by the gruesome scene, lost their fighting spirit and turned to flee. But within a few steps, they were lifted into the air by an invisible force. The Zabrak held the double-edged lightsaber in one hand and stretched out the other to grip the air tightly. He used the force to grab several soldiers at once. With this display, his mastery of the Force surpassed that of many Jedi Masters. With a wave of his hand, a powerful Jedi Knight could easily blow dozens of people away. However, to precisely use the Force to grab several individuals simultaneously and lift them into the air required not only immense control, but also significant strength. Zabrak approached, standing before the suspended soldiers, and slowly raised the lightsaber in his hand. Buzz! The lightsaber, swung at high speed, seemed to form a red net. In a flash, the soldiers were reduced to countless fragments, falling from midair. At that moment, Count Dooku, accompanied by his two black-robed bodyguards, disembarked from the spaceship. Observing the Zabrak's performance, he nodded in satisfaction. "Well done, Savage Opress. You will undoubtedly be the sharpest blade in my arsenal. Eliminate all my enemies." "As you wish, my lord," Savage Opress replied without turning around. He thrust his lightsaber into the wall beside him. A brief scream was heard from the other side, followed by the sound of a heavy body hitting the ground. On the bridge of the Endurance, a blood-red lightsaber suddenly pierced through the tightly closed door. The ultra-high temperature immediately melted a hole in the metal, and the lightsaber began to move slowly, gradually enlarging the opening. Inside the bridge, nearly all the officers and operators were armed. Some held blaster rifles, while others, lacking rifles, clutched pistols. They hid behind anything that could provide cover, nervously eyeing the gate. In the center of the bridge, Mace Windu, clad in a black robe, sat on the ground meditating, his back to the gate. He seemed oblivious to the lightsaber cutting through the door. Nearby, several headless corpses lay on the floor, operators who had attempted to flee, only to be beheaded by Windu, who had succumbed to the dark side and showed no mercy. With a loud bang, the mostly melted gate was kicked away by an immense force, hurtling towards Mace Windu faster than a bullet. However, the gate stopped abruptly, suspended in midair 2 meters behind Windu, held by a powerful force.
Attack! Kill! Shoot! Shoot!
The officers and operators inside the bridge screamed hysterically, raising their weapons and firing wildly. The blaster energy beams filled the air, but they seemed to vanish into nothingness, as if absorbed by an invisible force. "I don't think these worthless beings should spoil the fun between us," a deep, commanding voice declared. In the next instant, all the blaster guns flew out of the hands of everyone on the bridge, twisted by the powerful force into deadly spikes. Swish! Pooh! The spikes instantly pierced the heads of the officers and operators, silencing them forever. Chapter 1574, Dooku vs. Windu, Part 2. The entire bridge fell into a deathly silence, the smell of blood growing stronger with each passing moment. Count Dooku, clad in a black combat suit and a red and black cloak, slowly walked through the gate, which was still dripping with molten iron. He surveyed the scattered corpses on the bridge and spoke coldly. "Poor children, I can feel the endless fear in their hearts. Master Windu, you are truly a daunting existence." The bodies lay on the ground, their heads pierced by their own weapons, blood pooling around them. Their faces were frozen in terror. Dooku's tone was dripping with sarcasm. "I should thank you for ridding us of these cowards who only wanted to evade their responsibilities and desert the battlefield." Mace Windu, still seated in a meditative posture, did not turn around. He replied calmly, perhaps their destination shouldn't have been the battlefield. Dooku continued to walk forward slowly, his hands behind his back, not bothering to draw his lightsaber. "You led the entire Second Galaxy army, millions of people, to their deaths. I can't imagine such a despicable and shameless act coming from the Jedi Order. Compared to the Sith who have stolen the entire galaxy, it pales in comparison. But it's not too late. I will kill you all, one by one." Windu's voice was filled with murderous intent. "But clearly, you can only talk about it," Dooku sneered. "You who commanded the Second Galaxy army have suffered a disastrous defeat. Now you're nothing more than a lost dog. You think you've won?" Windu's lips curled into a slight smile. In the next second, the damaged metal door that had been kicked into the air and held midair by his force flew back like lightning, smashing towards Dooku. However, with a flash of blood-red light, the metal door was split in two. The severed pieces fell to the ground with a bang, not harming Dooku at all. He hadn't even moved a finger. Standing in front of Dooku was the yellow-skinned Zabrak, Savage Opress, with a ferocious expression. He had dodged over and cut the door with his sword, but Mace Windu was nowhere to be seen. At the same time, the two men in black robes standing behind Dooku drew their blood-red lightsabers and slashed towards the rear. 2 blood-red sword lights flashed, but the faster one was the purple wandering dragon. Even against 2 opponents, the purple sword light easily overwhelmed the blood-red lightsabers. Time seemed to stop. The arms holding the lightsabers fell to the ground along with the metal hilts, followed by 2 heads, their faces still showing disbelief. From the moment Windu pushed back the metal door, to Savage's attack, and then to Windu circling behind Dooku and beheading the 2 bodyguards, everything happened in a flash. The situation, which had seemed to be in Dooku's favor, was now uncertain. Windu did not pursue further. He knew the remaining 2 were the real threats. He glanced at the severed heads on the ground and mocked. "Ah, Master Valari and Master Caddis, it's been a long time. I didn't expect you to escape Order 66, but you couldn't escape my blade. It seems you still haven't learned much from the Jedi Knights, especially not to desert my swordsmanship class. Kill him, and I will teach you the true way of darkness. You will become one of the most powerful beings in this galaxy, Count Dooku declared, his voice filled with dark promise. Mace Windu did not draw his sword, keeping his hands behind his back. Instead of addressing Mace Windu, he turned to Savage Opress.
Roar!
Savage Opress let out a thunderous roar and lunged forward, swinging his double-edged lightsaber. In an instant, the red and purple lightsabers clashed, their shadows intertwining. Mace Windu and Savage Opress engaged in a fierce battle, their lightsabers moving so quickly that they were nearly invisible to the naked eye. Savage roared violently, his body transformed by Mother Talzin's dark force magic, making him incredibly powerful. The thick armor he wore could even withstand a light saber. Though his skills were rough, his strength was astonishing. Each swing of his lightsaber caused the force to fluctuate visibly in the light of the blade. Such a pure and powerful body, combined with such a pure and powerful force, even shocked Master Windu. He could tell that the Zabrak in front of him had not undergone long-term systematic training, likely only short-term intensive training. Yet, with such raw strength, Savage had reached an impressive level. Even among the former Jedi Knights, few could match this beast-like Zabrak. In the original plot, Savage, who had only undergone short-term training, was able to kill Adi Gallia, one of the Jedi Council members. His strength and talent were evident. However, Savage's current opponent was Master Windu, one of the galaxy's finest swordsmen. With his purple lightsaber in hand, Master Windu fully unleashed the seventh form of lightsaber combat, Vapad. His technique was ferocious. Vapad originally harnessed the user's inner anger to enhance their aggressiveness, but now, in the hands of Mace Windu, who had completely embraced the dark side, it was like a berserker's rage. Facing Savage Opress, Mace Windu chose to confront him head-on. Although his physical strength was far inferior to Savage's, his superior force abilities and exceptional swordsmanship more than compensated for it. The two clashed in the middle of the bridge, their battle wreaking havoc on the advanced main control console of the Jaeger-class battlecruiser, sending sparks flying everywhere. The heavy metal door from earlier was even used as a weapon, controlled by the Force, to smash back and forth between them. Given the immense power of both combatants, the multi-ton metal door became a suitable weapon, allowing them to interfere with each other's movements while their lightsabers clashed and collided. Under the strain of their powerful forces, the metal door was twisted into a lump of scrap iron. Savage roared and charged forward, his double-edged lightsaber spinning like a high-speed propeller. The blade slashed through the metal floor and console, the superheated plasma instantly melting these objects. The molten metal was then flung into the air, creating a deadly metal tornado. However, Mace Windu had already seen through Savage's attack. He used a highly advanced and difficult force technique known as Shatterpoint. Through this practice, Master Windu identified Savage's weak point. His purple lightsaber struck out instantly, but in the next second, another blood-red lightsaber intercepted Windu's blade with precise accuracy. Chapter 1575, Dooku vs. Windu, Part 2. Back off, you have already lost, Count Dooku said calmly, his voice dripping with disdain. Trash. At this moment, the curved lightsaber in his hand was already poised, its blood-red blade clashing with Mace Windu's purple lightsaber. Though it seemed like a casual move, Dooku's precision blocked Windu's strike by a hair's breadth. No, Savage Opress roared, unwilling to accept the outcome. But a mere glance from Dooku, empowered by the dark side of the Force, made Savage bow his head and retreat from the battle. In truth, Savage's abilities and swordsmanship had been completely deciphered by Master Windu. If not for Dooku's timely intervention, Savage's heart would have been pierced. The dark side makes you powerful, which is quite reassuring, Master Windu, Dooku sneered as he approached Mace Windu. With a flourish, he twirled his lightsaber and then performed a graceful duel ceremony, the hallmark of his preferred lightsaber form, Makashi, the second form. This starting gesture was Makashi's signature. However, in my opinion, the dark side has not made you stronger, Dooku. Mace Windu's expression grew fierce. Oh, it seems you know the dark side well. Are you prepared for it? Dooku mocked. It seems you haven't learned enough lessons on planet Thule. This time, there will be no dead angels to help you, Windu retorted. At the beginning of the war, when Dooku attempted to activate the Dark Harvester, he was confronted by Master Windu on planet Thule. Their battle was interrupted by the sudden appearance of Darth Malthael and the interference of the Dream Sisters, Chapter 611. Dooku merely sneered at Windu's words, unwilling to continue the verbal sparring. In the next moment, he took a sudden step forward. Though it was just one step, the movement was incredibly swift. In less than 0.1 seconds, he had completed the actions of stepping, lunging, and thrusting. With elegance, he aimed his curved lightsaber directly at Windu's heart. Mace Windu responded without hesitation, swinging his sword to parry the attack. 2 years later, these two master swordsmen, arguably the most powerful in the galaxy, were once again locked in a life-or-death duel. Dooku's Makashi form specialized in one-on-one lightsaber duels, characterized by small but precise and rapid movements. Most of his attacks were thrusts and cuts, designed to deliver lethal blows in the smallest possible space. This style was the polar opposite of Windu's aggressive seventh form, Vapad. Vapad, an evolution of the seventh form Juyo, was known for its ferocity and intensity. Both combatants were top-tier swordmasters, and their duel was a display of deadly elegance and power. Mace Windu's relentless attacks were met with Dooku's impeccable defense. Each seemingly simple step, crosscut, and thrust from Dooku struck at the heart of Windu's technique. Windu tried to exploit any weakness in Dooku's form, but found none. This realization unsettled him. The battle continued at a blistering pace, each clash of lightsabers a testament to their skill and determination. Both warriors were not only fighting, but also strategizing, seeking a way to overcome the formidable opponent before them. After another series of Windu's ferocious attacks were deftly parried by Dooku, Mace Windu finally realized something was wrong. Count Dooku's lightsaber consistently found the weak points in his attacks and countered them directly. This felt unmistakably like the ability to exploit breaking points. "Are you practicing the art of the breaking point?" Mace Windu blurted out. "I don't possess that talent, Windu. The way of the Force is profound. While you wandered down an indistinct path among the Jedi Knights, my steps were resolute. Your so-called breaking point technique is, in my eyes, full of flaws." Count Dooku sneered. "I could leave you here to be blown to pieces along with your flagship, but do you know why I won't?" His lightsaber flickered suddenly, and then dozens of strikes were launched in an instant, each aimed at Master Windu's vital points. Windu, already struggling, was forced to retreat repeatedly. "Because you, who claim to pay with blood all day long, don't understand your purpose. You don't even know your own path, so how can you hope to defeat me?" Count Dooku said coldly. "Even if you fall to the dark side, you still wouldn't know what to do. Does the dark side make you strong? No, you don't understand what true darkness is." With those words, he lunged forward again. His lightsaber appeared and disappeared like a ghost, impossible to predict. "I'm so disappointed, Mace Windu." Count Dooku's voice grew louder. "When you sought to create the Vapad form, you were full of spirit and confidence. But since then, you've used your rigidity to influence the Jedi Knights time and time again. The 30,000-year heritage of the Jedi Knights has been destroyed by your hands, and you haven't even realized it." Under Dooku's faster and more precise lightsaber strikes, Mace Windu was completely unable to counterattack and could only defend passively. At this moment, the outcome between the two was already decided. But this battle wasn't just about victory or defeat, it was about life and death. "Have I betrayed the Jedi Order? Yes, because I have foreseen your bleak future. Planet Galidron, Planet Kali, Planet Naboo, you had countless opportunities to get back on the right track. But when did you ever truly want to change and seize those opportunities?" Count Dooku's voice was almost a lament. Mace Windu didn't even have the energy to respond. He could only hold on, relying on his still strong connection to the Force and his exceptional swordsmanship. If not for these, he would have already fallen to Count Dooku's blade. As Dooku had said, Windu, who was neither fully light nor dark, had long lost the heart of a true warrior, starting with that failure on the planet Harun Kal. Chapter 1576, the end of the Second Galaxy Army. Earl Dooku had firmly taken the upper hand. leaving Mace Windu completely powerless to fight back. The seventh form of berserk swordsmanship, Vapad, could no longer unleash its fury. It was as if a ferocious beast had been caged, its claws and teeth rendered harmless. Just like the Second Galaxy Army led by Windu, they had become trapped beasts, awaiting their inevitable demise. "No, no, this is impossible. You should not be my opponent, Dooku." Mace Windu roared, his purple lightsaber slashing down with immense force. In their early days within the Jedi Order, the two had often sparred, usually ending in a draw. Both were masters of swordsmanship, having reached the pinnacle of their skills. Their duels were evenly matched, with each gaining valuable insights from the other. However, as time passed, the ideological differences between Dooku and Windu grew wider. Eventually, they became strangers within the Jedi Order, their friendly exchanges a thing of the past. After Master Windu created the Vapad swordsmanship, it was widely recognized that Vapad had a strong counter to Dooku's preferred Makashi style. Additionally, Dooku's fall to the dark side seemed to give Vapad users an edge, as the technique harnessed the Force in a way that amplified the negative effects of the dark side. Master Windu had always believed he was superior to Earl Dooku, a belief reinforced by their confrontation on planet Thule. As Dooku aged, Windu, still in his prime, felt his advantage growing. But now, he found himself outmatched by Dooku, a realization that was utterly unacceptable to him. Dooku's lightsaber flashed like lightning, and his blood-red blade pierced Windu's defenses 3 times in quick succession. Windu suddenly felt his connection to the Force falter. Seizing the moment, Dooku used the Force to tear a console from the battleship and hurl it at Windu. Boom! The impact sent Master Windu flying several meters. As he struggled to regain his footing, Dooku was already upon him, thrusting his lightsaber forward. Windu barely managed to dodge, but the blade still struck his left mechanical eye, burning the wound and eliciting a scream of pain. At that moment, Severance Tan's voice crackled over the communication channel. "A shuttle and a fighter jet are approaching at high speed. Our anti-aircraft artillery can't stop them. They must be Jedi Knights." "Oh, it seems your companions have arrived. Who is it?" "Ki-Adi-Mundi. I'm looking forward to fighting him. But you, unfortunately, will never see them again," Dooku said calmly, raising his lightsaber for the final blow. However, in a surprising turn of events, the approaching ETA-2 fighter jet opened fire. 2 proton torpedoes streaked towards the battleship's bridge, exploding with devastating force. The Endurance, already crippled, had no deflector shields to protect it. The explosions tore a massive hole in the bridge, and everything inside was sucked into the vacuum of space. In the chaos, the Lambda-class shuttle, a shuttle zoomed by at high speed, grabbing Mace Windu with a tractor beam and turning around without any slowdown. Count Dooku, who had stabilized himself in the vacuum of space using the Force, was furious. He raised his hand and grabbed the double-bladed lightsaber next to Savage Opress, hurling it directly at the nearest fighter. The speed of the lightsaber was so fast that even ordinary electromagnetic guns couldn't match it under the acceleration of the Force. It pierced a large hole directly in the body of the ETA-2 fighter, which then billowed with thick smoke, lost control, and rolled in space. The next second, anti-aircraft fire from the Doom blasted the fighter into a ball of fire. However, the Lambda-class shuttle had already disappeared into the sky. Despite the surprise attack, Severance Tan led only the Doom and a few dozen small warships, and they were deep in the center of the Second Galactic Army fleet formation. Although the Second Galactic Army had lost its phase, their existing battle-P strength still had an advantage. Count Dooku looked in the direction where the spaceship disappeared, his eyes full of anger. "You saved your life, Mace Windu," Count Dooku gritted his teeth. "Is it a coincidence? Is it luck or fate? No, destiny should belong to darkness." The Lambda-class shuttle that rescued Mace Windu did not stop, but flew directly away from the battlefield. This latest shuttle of the Galactic Republic was specially designed to transport top important individuals with no expense spared on safety and speed. In this chaotic battlefield, finding this shuttle again was an impossible task. Although Count Dooku, who returned to the Doom, was furious, he had to accept the reality that Master Windu had escaped from a desperate situation. He couldn't blame Severance Tan either. After all, Relying on conventional anti-aircraft firepower, it was almost impossible to shoot down a fighter piloted by a top Jedi Master. The behavior of the Lambda-class shuttle to save Master Windu was crazy. First, it directly launched a proton torpedo at the bridge. This could be avoided by Count Dooku, who was in peak condition, but it was fatal to Master Windu, who was seriously injured. If not careful, he would be blown to pieces. Then, using the tractor beam to catch Master Windu was also insane. The tractor beam is generally used by spacecraft to grab cargo in space, equivalent to an invisible crane, and is very convenient. But the tractor beam can only grab metal objects. Master Windu, paralyzed after being seriously injured by Dipa Bilaba and the dead angel on the planet Harun Kal, had undergone mechanized transformation, so there was metal in his body. Being caught by the tractor beam and then flying at high speed was equivalent to constantly tearing the mechanical prosthesis on him. Such pain was unimaginable. Even if he escaped from the battlefield, whether Mace Windu could still live was uncertain. It could only be said that the person who came to rescue him had already thought of the most difficult plan and sacrificed everything to increase the success rate of escape. After Mace Windu, the supreme commander of the Second Galactic Army, fled the battlefield. The leaderless main fleet of the Second Galactic Army was almost finished. In fact, before communication was restored, it didn't matter whether they were leaderless or not, because those warships didn't even know that Master Windu had escaped, so they continued to be harvested by the fleet led by Severance Tan. Under such desperate battle conditions, many warships chose to surrender. The Separatists continued to broadcast. The signals were sent, instructing the warships to shut down their engines and lower their shields as a sign of surrender, ensuring they would not be attacked. This time, the communication interference was not continuous. As previously mentioned, the mere presence of 80 Sentinel-class electronic warfare frigates was insufficient to disrupt the communication system of the entire Second Galaxy Army main fleet. The firewalls of those large warships were robust, and their energy levels were too high to be easily interfered with under normal circumstances. After the magnetic field generated by the destroyer's detonation of the electromagnetic nebula subsided, the Second Galaxy Army's communication was finally restored. It was then that they received the shocking news. Their supreme leader, Mace Windu, was missing. Not only was Mace Windu missing, but reports from the survivors of the Endurance indicated that he had killed his own fleet commander, Admiral Sopnos, before his disappearance. The reason there were survivors on the Endurance was that the remaining officers and soldiers on the battleship chose to surrender immediately after witnessing Master Windu being rescued by a shuttle. Furthermore, in the ensuing battle, the entire fleet staff and senior officers on the Endurance were killed, effectively paralyzing the command system of the Second Galaxy Army. However, the paralysis of the command system was not the most critical issue. The collapse of morale and fighting spirit among the officers and soldiers of the Second Galaxy Army at all levels was the fatal problem. More and more warships began to surrender, and with the restoration of communication, the number of warships negotiating their surrender increased. Less than 3 hours after Mace Windu was rescued, the battle near the planet Antway was completely over. The main fleet of the Second Galaxy Army had surrendered. The Second Galaxy Army had participated in the Battle of the Antway Galaxy with a total of 118 capital ships, including 80 Hunter-class battlecruisers, 5 Invincible-class battlecruisers, 25 Dreadnought-class heavy cruisers, and 8 Victory I-class star destroyers. Additionally, there were 325 small and medium-sized warships, including 90 Arquitens-class light cruisers, 50 Carrack-class light cruisers, 50 armed Consul-class cruisers, 50 CR-70 frigates, and 80 DP-20 anti-aircraft gunboats, along with 5 Apocalypse-class light cruisers. During the battle, 27 Hunter-class battlecruisers, 5 Invincible-class battlecruisers, 18 Dreadnought-class heavy cruisers, and 3 Victory I-class star destroyers were either destroyed or paralyzed. More than half of the small and medium-sized battleships were lost. After Master Windu's disappearance, all the remaining warships surrendered. After accounting for the battleships that were too damaged to be repaired and were better dismantled, Severance Tan received a total of 42 Jaeger-class ships, 5 Dreadnought-class ships, and 5 Victory I-class ships. Among the small and medium-sized warships, they received 59 Arquitens-class light cruisers, 16 Carrack-class light cruisers, 40 armed Consul-class cruisers, 2 CR-70 frigates, 21 DP-20 anti-aircraft gunboats, and 5 Apocalypse-class light cruisers. The armed Consul-class cruisers were largely ignored due to their weak firepower. Originally unarmed spaceships, they had turrets installed later, which allowed many to survive the battle. The Apocalypse-class light cruisers were intentionally spared by Severance Tan, as they could be directly incorporated into the Liming Principality's naval establishment without any modifications. The CR-70 frigates, Carrack-class light cruisers, and Invincible-class battle cruisers, which had been phased out of the Galactic Republic Navy due to insufficient combat capabilities, were almost entirely wiped out. The Second Galaxy Army's defeat was comprehensive, and the aftermath of the battle left Severance Tan with a significant number of warships to bolster their fleet. In the aftermath of the battle, half of the Galactic Republic's battleships remained stationed on Garros IV and the Mandalorian planets. Upon receiving news of the main fleet's annihilation, these battleships promptly left the starfield and returned to the Galactic Republic. The other two fleets were commanded by fallen Dark Jedi Masters Ki-Adi-Mundi and Ray Gul. Sensing the imminent danger, they piloted their fighter planes to the Antway Galaxy, ultimately rescuing Master Windu. However, they lost control of their fleet in the process. The officers and soldiers of the Second Galaxy Army were reluctant to betray the Galactic Republic, with many having been coerced into their actions. Following their devastating defeat, they abandoned Master Windu and the others without hesitation. These officers and soldiers hoped that by returning the fleet, they could atone for their crimes and receive leniency from the Supreme Military Court. However, the verdict a month later dashed their hopes. The Supreme Military Court convicted all of them of serious crimes. Several officers were executed, and the rest were sentenced to labor in the mining areas, though this is another story. During the cleanup of the battlefield, the Doom salvaged a fighter that had been pierced by a lightsaber thrown by Count Dooku and subsequently destroyed by the Doom's anti-aircraft fire. The mutilated corpse of the pilot was unrecognizable, reduced to charred lumps of flesh. However, Count Dooku identified the individual through the Force as Jedi, Master Ray Gul. This confirmed that Ki-Adi-Mundi had been piloting the Lambda-class shuttle. His formidable strength and control enabled him to execute such extreme maneuvers and rescue Master Windu from under Count Dooku's nose. After the battlefield was cleared, Count Dooku spoke to Severance Tan, expressing his desire to attract her allegiance. He then returned to the Laxus subplanet with the Titan battleship Shadow, which had been observing the events from a distance in the Yawan galaxy. Out over the sprawling cityscape of Liming City. The city was a testament to his ambition and vision, a bustling metropolis that thrived under his rule. The towering skyscrapers, the bustling streets, and the vibrant energy of the city were all reflections of his influence and power. Tang Xiao's mansion, perched atop the administrative center, was a symbol of his dominance. The building itself was a marvel of engineering, standing over 3,000 meters tall, with the top 150 meters reserved for his personal residence. From this vantage point, he could see everything, and it gave him a sense of control and authority. When he had first arrived in this world, waking up on the Mothership, he had been overwhelmed by the possibilities. The Mothership had provided him with everything he could ever desire: wealth, luxury, status, and power. But as he delved deeper into his new reality, he realized that these material possessions were not enough. The Mothership had pointed him towards a greater goal: domination. He had an army at his command, industries that fueled his ambitions, and a diverse group of 650,000 experts and heroes from various races and fields. He had billions of high-quality embryos ready to populate the remote galaxy rich in resources that he now called home. But he knew that this galaxy would soon become the epicenter of conflict, and he was determined to be at the forefront of it all. Tang Xiao's ambitions were boundless. He wanted to dominate the galaxy, to carve out an empire that would stand the test of time. He knew that his journey would be fraught with challenges, especially with opponents like the enigmatic Darth Sidious. But he was undeterred. This was his destiny, his romance of conquest. Yet, amidst his grand plans, Tang Xiao constantly reflected on his situation. The Mothership had given him everything, but it had also presented him with a riddle. There was a spherical space within the Mothership, a mysterious core that remained impenetrable. This space, with a diameter of about 200 meters, had no entrances or gaps, and no instrument could scan it. The material of its outer shell was unknown, even under an electron microscope, revealing only a compact structure devoid of atoms and molecules. Scientists had calculated that this spherical space accounted for more than half of the Mothership's mass, a fact that was both astonishing and terrifying. When Tang Xiao had inquired about it, the Mothership's mastermind had explained that this space housed the mainframe and the hyperspace core, and that no one, not even Tang Xiao, had the authority to access it. Despite the logical explanation, Tang Xiao's intuition told him that the answers he sought lay within that spherical space. He had power and influence, but he knew that he was still a pawn in a larger game. His pursuit of strength and immortality was driven by the fear that he might not have enough time or power to uncover the truth. For now, he would focus on the task at hand. If this mysterious existence wanted him to fight for the hegemony of the galaxy, then he would do just that. He would conquer the galaxy, starting with Liming Planet, and from there, he would expand his reach. Tang Xiao turned away from the window, his resolve steeled. The path ahead was clear, and he was ready to face whatever challenges lay in his way. The galaxy awaited, and he would stop at nothing to claim it as his own. At the city beneath his feet, buildings with a futuristic design rose up, neatly arranged in a harmonious layout. With the completion of the global wireless power supply network, the city was free from the constraints of wired cables, allowing architectural designers to unleash their artistic talents without restraint. This freedom resulted in a breathtakingly beautiful cityscape. Suspension vehicles and spaceships flew in orderly patterns at various heights, resembling blood vessels injecting fresh vitality into the city. In the distance, a majestic 1,000-meter-high tower stood tall. This was the synaptic network node of the planet. Under the cover of thousands of such nodes, the planet's operations were scientifically arranged and calculated. High above, an oval light blue spaceship flew slowly. Its color and altitude made it difficult for ordinary people to see clearly. This was a climate adjustment device, controlling the planet's atmosphere to ensure good weather year-round. There were many such advancements, some of which even Tang Xiao himself was not fully aware of. When various departments reported to him, he mostly saw simulated renderings, data, and investment amounts. Often, he dealt with more macroscopic issues, such as the climate control device, which was a result of the Ministry of Planetary Environment's funding application. Once these spaceships were manufactured and deployed across the planet, Tang Xiao didn't even know what they looked like. There were many unseen aspects, and the fourth civilization was developing rapidly. The influx of population, products, and capital accelerated the planet's development to an incredible speed. The development of Dawnstar was supported by thousands of galaxies, including the Trade Federation and the Interstellar Banking Association. This ever-changing planet and its growing civilization gave Tang Xiao a profound sense of accomplishment and confidence to participate in the galactic battle for hegemony. More importantly, all of this was his. No one could take it away. Tang Xiao clenched his fists involuntarily, his eyes sharp like an eagle's. He took a deep breath to calm his surging emotions. Tang Xiao turned slightly to the side, looking at a person kneeling behind him. This person had been kneeling for at least an hour. Tang Xiao had paid no attention, dealing with official documents, enjoying the scenery, and sipping afternoon tea. The person kneeling was Severance Tan. She knelt on one knee, head bowed, her long black wavy hair hanging down her side, motionless. Beads of sweat glistened on her blue skin, indicating the physical strain of kneeling for so long. Yet, she endured silently, not daring to complain. The domineering, arrogant, and invincible general in the army was now like a humble servant before Tang Xiao. This was the same Severance Tan who had just wiped out the Second Galaxy Army of the Galactic Republic and captured hundreds of warships. Yet, she appeared as if she were being punished for defeat. Tang Xiao slowly returned to the sofa and sat down, looking at Severance Tan for a long time before finally speaking. You want to stay in the Alliance of Neutrals and join the Federation of Independent Galaxies, even though you have repeatedly emphasized that your allegiance is to me forever? Yes, my master, Severance Tan replied, using the word master, though Tang Xiao had never acknowledged such a relationship. Tang Xiao's tone gradually turned cold. Do you know why I made you kneel here? Severance Tan raised her head, her voice trembling. I know, because this is betrayal. She hesitated, then added, but, I think. Before she could finish, an invisible force clamped around her throat, cutting off her words. The suffocating sensation made her want to struggle, but she forced herself to endure it, maintaining her kneeling posture to show her loyalty. I'm the one asking questions here. I don't need any explanations from you. Or do you wish to make the judgment instead of me? Tang Xiao's voice was icy. Severance Tan shook her head vigorously, unable to speak or breathe. Tang Xiao did not ease his grip and continued, Then, what attracted you? Is it the position of Supreme Military Commander of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, or their powerful forces? Are you protesting because I didn't make you the Commander-in-Chief of the Navy? Or because our Principality of Dawn isn't powerful enough? Severance Tan could only shake her head desperately. With a wave of his hand, Tang Xiao used the force to fling her into the air. She hit the wall and crumpled to the ground. Struggling to her feet, she knelt before Tang Xiao again, her voice hoarse. Please, Master R, listen to my explanation. My loyalty to you will never waver. Tang Xiao looked at her coldly. You want a space to play freely. You understand that the strategic goal of the Duchy of Dawn in the next stage is defense. Admiral Matt Horner, Governor Volgograd Kanedi, and Governor Lingliang are all capable of fulfilling the strategic goals of their respective defense zones, leaving even less room for you. Seeing that Severance Tan wanted to speak, Tang Xiao silenced her with a glance. Not only that, but you also see that the Duchy of Dawn doesn't have any more fleets for you to command. The Xuanwu Titan is a defensive warship, and the new Titan we started is also an Ant Karan class. Therefore, you can only ask for warships from the Confederation of Independent Systems. Whether it is the Conqueror-class destroyer or the Ragnarov-class Shadow, they are all offensive warships that you desire. Is that correct? Severance Tan nodded. Yes, Master, but my loyalty. But I see through you. Tang Xiao interrupted. You want to carve out your own domain and be rewarded for your victories. You want independent military command. In short, you think the power I've given you is insufficient. You gave me an ultimatum. Either meet your demands or face your betrayal. Now tell me, if you were in my position, what would you do? It's different. I'm willing to do anything to prove my loyalty. Severance Tan exclaimed. And then, let you go out, act independently, disobey orders, and trust your verbal loyalty? Tang Xiao retorted. Severance Tan stood up and began to remove her clothes, revealing her slender, beautiful, yet firm and toned body. She bowed her head and said, Since the Battle of the Blade Fleet, I have regarded you as my only master. I will never change until death. Everything I have belongs to you, my master. If I have any second thoughts, please take my life at any time. Tang Xiao looked at the beautiful and alluring body before him. After Severance Tan removed her general's uniform, she stood as a woman full of mature charm. Her time in the military and regular exercise had given her a heroic and attractive appearance, but for Tang Xiao, female allure was no longer his pursuit. It was merely a tool. He gazed at the body in front of him, one that countless people would dream of. And he responded coldly, This is not the first time you've used your body, Severance Tan. That time, I had no choice, Severance Tan exclaimed, her voice rising. My family was ruined and scattered. I was alone in the wild, facing endless pursuit. I had no choice. But now, the situation is completely different. I have more choices, but I will definitely not choose anyone but you. You are my future, my life. She walked towards Tang Xiao, her face full of determination. I just want you to accept my loyalty. She stopped in front of him, then slowly knelt down and kissed his slippers. Tang Xiao's mind wandered as he looked at the beautiful blue-skinned female general before him. Was it because of the battle with the Blade Fleet, where he had almost violated her, that she had awakened some other attributes? Or was it simply fear of death? Severance Tan's proposal was indeed impeccable from a military standpoint. He did need a force that could exert influence on the alliance of neutrals. Placing Severance Tan there would certainly give her more room to maneuver. But there was a significant issue: loyalty. Severance Tan was clearly trying to prove her loyalty. She understood that without the support of the Duchy of Dawn, her fleet would achieve nothing. The fate of the Second Galaxy Army was a vivid example of this. Even if she joined the Confederation of Independent Galaxies, it would be futile. If Tang Xiao insisted, Earl Dooku would rather sacrifice Tan to maintain his relationship with Tang Xiao. Chapter 1578, Guarding the Portal. After a long silence, Tang Xiao finally spoke. "I can give you this chance." Severance Tan was overwhelmed with surprise and quickly raised her head. However, the moment she looked up, she saw Tang Xiao pointing his finger directly at her forehead. An unbearable pain struck, causing Severance Tan to fall to the ground with a scream. But just as she put her hand on her forehead, the pain vanished instantly, as if it had never existed. "Get up and do what you need to do," Tang Xiao said flatly. "This is your reward." Severance Tan didn't dare to ask what Tang Xiao had done. She quickly stood up and approached him. Her graceful body wrapped around Tang Xiao like a water snake, using every means she could to win his favor. She lay on Tang Xiao's body, cupped his face, and kissed him deeply. After a long, intimate encounter, Severance Tan, now dressed in her general's uniform and exuding confidence and defiance, walked out of Tang Xiao's room. With Tang Xiao's consent, she had much to accomplish. Adele Ulan opened the door and entered the room, only to see Tang Xiao in loose pajamas, holding a glass of wine, standing by the window. He watched a Lambda-class shuttle quickly disappear into the sky. Beside the large bed, a cleaning robot was tidying up the messy scene, peeling off the half-wet sheets, gathering scattered clothes, and cleaning up unknown liquids. The corners of Adele Ulan's beautiful eyes twitched slightly, and her heart was filled with unspeakable emotions. Just moments ago, she had been next door, knowing her husband was with another woman, but she could only sit on her bed, unable to do anything. For a girl who had never experienced love, there was no more painful torture than this. She came up behind Tang Xiao, gently hugged his waist, and buried her head deeply into his broad back, seeking some comfort. However, what she smelled was the fragrance of another woman. Adele Ulan trembled all over, tears welling up in her eyes. She hugged Tang Xiao tighter, her nails digging into his skin. "Now she is more valuable than me, isn't she? She can fight for you, she can destroy the Second Galaxy Army for you. So, she is more qualified to be favored by you, isn't she?" Adele Ulan said softly. Tang Xiao turned around, looked down at the young girl who had just entered the workforce, and said lightly, "Don't forget your identity, and her identity. Do what you should do, and don't think too much. You are my wife, and one day you will be the most powerful woman in the entire Dawn Principality." He gently lifted the girl's chin, rubbing his thumb lightly on her cherry lips. The girl obediently opened her mouth and gently bit his finger, her warm tongue sliding gently. "What's more, don't cause trouble for me," Tang Xiao said, pushing her down on the bed and then pressing his whole body onto hers. Severance Tan returned to the star area where the Alliance of Neutrals was located. She reorganized the warships of the Second Galaxy Army that had been captured earlier and sent all the warships that needed repairs back to the largest interstellar dock in the Confederacy of Independent Systems, Parmante Port. Then, with the battleship Destroyer as the flagship, she reorganized the best-conditioned warships into her own fleet. In addition to the Destroyer, her fleet now included 5 Behemoth-class battlecruisers, 5 Victory-class Star Destroyers, 20 Hunter-class battlecruisers, and 150 small and medium-sized warships, including the Archetons-class light cruiser. Compared to the mighty Second Galaxy Army before, the size of this fleet was insignificant. But at this moment, with the prestige of defeating the Second Galaxy Army, even with such a small fleet, no one dared to challenge her. For Severance Tan, there was another piece of good news. Because the communication During the previous battle, the Second Galaxy Army's communication lines were severed, preventing them from deploying their fighter formation. Consequently, after the main fleet of the Second Gala XY Army surrendered, they handed over more than 12,000 well-preserved fighter jets. This substantial formation of fighter jets bolstered Severance Tan's confidence. She accepted the title of Admiral of the Confederation of Independent Systems, but declined Count Dooku's request to succeed General Grievous as the Supreme Military Commander. Severance Tan understood that the position of Supreme Military Commander was fraught with peril. Accepting it would not only antagonize General Grievous, but also bind her irrevocably to the Confederation of Independent Systems, which was not her desire. After negotiating with Count Dooku, she stationed her fleet on planet Findle. This was the same planet where Master Windu had previously deployed the main fleet of the Second Galaxy Army. Planet Findle is strategically located near planet Akiva, which controls a crucial traffic artery in the star area where the Alliance of Neutrals is situated. Although it doesn't have the same expansive influence as the Mandalorian planet, it serves as a vital gateway. Severance Tan's deployment was partly due to the limited strength of her fleet, which couldn't operate as prominently as the Second Galaxy Army had. This situation might improve once the repaired warships join her forces. More importantly, before departing, Tang Xiao had strictly instructed Severance Tan not to interfere in Mandalorian affairs, regardless of the circumstances. He warned her that a larger conspiracy might be unfolding on the Mandalorian planet, and neither Tang Xiao nor the Duchy of Dawn had the capacity to intervene across the entire galaxy. Therefore, maintaining a vigilant but passive stance was deemed the best approach. For the Confederation of Independent Systems, Severance Tan's previous military actions had exposed their secret robot factory on Akiva. To protect this factory from potential attacks by the Galactic Republic, deploying a fleet to guard the portal on planet Findle was the optimal choice. Moreover, since the majority of this fleet was captured from the Second Galaxy Army, it was essentially a cost-free operation. After establishing her presence on planet Findle, Severance Tan coordinated with General Grievous's defense line on planet Selukami, ensuring the security of the core area of the Confederacy of Independent Systems from both flanks. Chapter 1579, Severance Tan's Strategy. Severance Tan did not hesitate to leave the Duchy of Dawn, seizing this opportunity not merely to help the Confederation of Independent Galaxies guard the gate. Her ambitions extended far beyond that. Her plan mirrored that of Master Mace Windu. She aimed to bring the Alliance of Neutrals and even the treasure of Mandalore under her control. 4,000 years ago, this vast star area was the core control region of the Mandalorian Crusaders. The Mandalorian Crusade, which was highly influential at the time, continued to invade and expand within this star area, eventually becoming a significant threat to the Galactic Republic. Although the Mandalorian Crusade eventually fell and the planet Mandalore declined, the legacy and traditions of the Mandalorians persisted, along with the potential for development. This enduring influence was why the Galactic Republic launched the Mandalorian Excision Operation over 700 years ago, delivering another devastating blow to the planet Mandalore. Upon her arrival on planet Fendel, Severance Tan's first move was to inform all the planets of the Neutral Alliance that her fleet was stationed there, guarding the entire star area. She offered assistance with escorts, pirate threats, and other needs, albeit for a fee that was still within acceptable limits for these planets. Additionally, she began leading fleets to attack planets loyal to the Galactic Republic in this sector, disrupting the Republic's supply lines. The star area where the Alliance of Neutrals is located is vast, and not all planets within it belong to the Alliance. Many planets support the Galactic Republic, while others back the Confederacy of Independent Systems. However, these planets lack significant strength and influence, rendering their verbal support ineffective. The Galactic Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems often ignored them, as the cost of sending fleets to attack these poor and backward planets outweighed any potential gains. Severance Tan, however, was not content with mere lip service. She launched real attacks, aiming to gradually sever the Galactic Republic's influence in this star area and expand her own. Over time, this strategy would naturally lead these planets to align with her side. This approach was the correct way to gain a foothold in the League of Neutrals. Master Windu's method was too hasty, resulting in the opposite effect. However, it's not fair to say that Severance Tan was better than Mace Windu, as their situations were entirely different. Mace Windu had a massive fleet to support, and after breaking away from the Republic, he lost his backup. He could no longer sustain this fleet through normal means, forcing him to use desperate measures to establish a larger territory before the Alliance of Neutrals was drained. In contrast, Severance Tan had a much smaller fleet and the support of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, relieving her of logistical pressures. In her long-term strategic vision, the Alliance of Neutrals was merely a springboard. Her ultimate goal was the Hydia Channel, one of the 5 largest hyperspace channels in the galaxy. These channels included the Hydia Way, Corellian Run, Corellian Trade Spine, Rima Trade Route, and Perlemian Trade Route. Additionally, there was the Rendili Trade Route, another significant hyperspace route extending from the planet Rendili to the Andat planet. Far from the planet Bespin, the connection between the Principality of Dawn and the planet Rendili has been severed due to Rendili's betrayal of the Galactic Republic. If this channel could be reopened, it would significantly enhance the connectivity between these two regions. The names of these ultra-large-scale hyperspace waterways reveal the historical and industrial backgrounds of 3 super-industrial giants, Corellia, Rendili, and Quartet. Compared to Corellia and Rendili, Quartet is a relative newcomer. The importance of historical background cannot be overstated. For instance, Corellia has maintained its status as a core member of the ruling regime for tens of thousands of years, thanks to its robust industrial capabilities and comprehensive strength. This historical continuity has allowed Corellia to remain influential regardless of the changing dynasties. Severance Tan's primary objective is to control the Hydia Waterway, the most accessible route in the Neutral Alliance star area. Controlling the Hydia Channel would effectively choke the Galactic Republic's northeastern artery on the Milky Way star map. If her strategy succeeds, combined with the actions of the Geth, the entire northern border of the galaxy would no longer be under the Republic's control. Severance Tan would then become the undisputed ruler of the North. She has dedicated everything to Tang Xiao, seeking this very opportunity. Currently, the northern border of the Milky Way is under a terrible shadow, Geth. With the destruction of the Galactic Republic's 8th Army and the fall of the planet Ord Mantell, a significant gap has appeared in the Republic's northern defenses. The 7th and 9th Armies, positioned around the 8th Army, have shifted to a defensive stance, attempting to halt the Geth invasion. However, the Geth's movements are unpredictable. They primarily focus on harassing Republic planets, capturing them, impaling residents on dragon's teeth to create corpse puppets, and stripping the planets of useful equipment. They rarely occupy planets, making it difficult for the Republic fleet to track and engage them. Moreover, as mechanical life forms, the Geth do not rely heavily on logistical supplies. Their fleets can operate for extended periods without rest, giving them a vast range of activity. Consequently, the 7th and 9th Armies find themselves powerless against the Geth. Easter Egg Chapter Attachment 1. The approximate direction of the Hydia Channel and the Rendili Trade Channel, as well as the approximate range of the Neutral Alliance star area. Chapter 1580, Battle of Theta Extermination, Part 1. We had a win and nothing else. Gerard Palayon, Marshal of the Galactic Empire, Memoirs of Conquest, 22 Imperium Calendar. War. War never changes. If one looks back on the history of human conflicts, they will find that the development of warfare is cyclical. When primitive humans first learned to tie stones to tree branches, their initial instinct was to use these stone hammers against their fellow humans. Warfare at that time was straightforward. The strongest prevailed, and the one who could wield the largest stone hammer dominated. As years passed, humans learned to craft bows and arrows, to wear wooden and leather armor for protection, and to domesticate horses, camels, and elephants for use in battle. Warfare became increasingly complex as humans sought more efficient ways to conduct operations. They studied how to maximize the power of their animals and how to best utilize their bows, arrows, and armor. With the advent of muskets, bows and arrows became obsolete, and armor lost its effectiveness. Trenches rendered cavalry useless, and the invention of machine guns and cannons simplified strategies to basic arithmetic. At this stage, warfare began to subtract. Weapons that once dominated the battlefield were replaced by machine guns, cannons, and trenches. However, human ingenuity is boundless. Talented war scientists introduced new weapons to the battlefield. Tanks countered machine guns, airplanes limited the dominance of cannons, and rockets and missiles expanded the scope of warfare to unprecedented levels. Warfare entered a phase of addition once more, with an increasing variety of weapons and equipment appearing on the battlefield. Each conflict involved hundreds or even thousands of different tools of war, each serving a specific purpose. Yet, the core of warfare remained unchanged: killing. In the interstellar era, space warships emerged on the battlefield. These ships could launch planet-wide attacks from orbit, rendering cannons, missiles, and machine guns mere decorations. Warfare became simpler again. The exchange of fire between battleships determined the outcome. Control of the planet's orbit meant the power to annihilate the entire planet. Ground battles became more about political maneuvering than military necessity. After all, there are only so many habitable planets in the Milky Way galaxy. Destroying one means losing it forever. If unrestricted bombing were allowed, humanity would soon be confined to living on spaceships. Some might romanticize the idea of a starship civilization, but in reality, living on a ship for years, even a luxury cruise ship, would lead to depression within a year. The confined space of a spaceship cannot compare to the vast, open land of a planet. Thus, modern warfare often involves fleets engaging in battle, followed by the projection of ground forces to the opponent's political center to achieve political objectives through military means. The most typical strategy is to overthrow the existing regime and establish a new puppet government. The clone army of the Galactic Republic was created with this concept of warfare in mind. This philosophy is even reflected in their warship designs. For instance, the enormous hangar capacity of the Jaeger-class warships is actually to be continued in Part 2. The Galactic Republic and the Confederation of Independent Galaxies have been at war for over 2 years. Despite the intense conflict, neither side has fully mobilized their forces. This is because, in the face of space battleships, even an army of millions makes little difference. The Duchy of Dawn has managed to outmaneuver the Galactic Republic by staying ahead of the times, complicating the war with a composite fleet and a multifunctional army. This has made it difficult for the Galactic Republic to counter with their more straightforward military strategies. Consequently, the Republic is now learning and exploring ways to diversify and complicate its own war tactics. In the northern border of the galaxy, however, the nature of the war has taken a more brutal and direct turn, leaving the Galactic Republic even more bewildered. This new phase is known as the Extinction War. Planet Theta, located in the northern part of the Milky Way's star map, Theta is a remote planet in the outer ring with few hyperspace passages. Its unpredictable climate has made it a haven for gangsters, bandits, smugglers, and criminals. Here, you can find almost every adventurous race in the galaxy: Rhodians, Bothans, Grands, humans, Ishitib, and more. The air is thick with an aura of malevolence. There is a saying, Nar Shaddaa looks classy compared to Theta. In modern terms, if Nar Shaddaa is Sicily, the mafia's hometown, then Theta is the filthy slum of a third-world country. Get out of my bar, you drunk, or I'll make you regret it. Dekka, a burly Rhodian, pointed his beloved modified blaster at a staggering drunkard and roared. There's a zombie here. Ha! Corpse puppets. Ha ha! We're all dead. The Geth are eyeing this place. Ha ha! The drunk stood up unsteadily, grabbed a half-empty bottle of cheap wine, pulled out the cork, and gulped down several mouthfuls. Get out! If you keep spouting nonsense and ruin my business, I'll blow your head off. Dekka was furious. He pulled the bolt hard, activating the supercharger on his blaster rifle. The barrel began to glow with dazzling energy, capable of blowing up a hovering car with one shot. Don't shoot! Don't shoot! The drunk quickly retreated, staggering out of the bar. Dekka spat at his back. What a fucking bad luck! Hey, Dekka, is what that guy said true? Did a corpse puppet really appear and eat his wife? Asked a human alcoholic nearby. That guy drinks all day and drove his wife away in anger. Now he comes here to spread rumors. What a bastard! His wife is probably lying in the bed of a wealthy moon merchant now, huh? Dekka snorted. But what if a corpse puppet really appears? Doesn't that mean the Geth have come? A grand man looked terrified. I heard last month that the Geth took over Rakakaro. There wasn't a single survivor on the planet. That's bullshit, Dekka retorted. If there were no survivors, how did we get this news? It's just propaganda from the Galactic Republic to make us obey, pay taxes, and accept their garrison. Hey, Doku, do you want the Republic to garrison us here? He shouted across the bar. Fuck the Galactic Republic. Fuck Palpatine. A burly human, at least 2 meters tall, raised his middle finger high. Ha! Several of his companions joined in the laughter. A man shouted loudly, then took a swig from the large wineglass in his hand. Listen to me, kid with 3 eyes. Dekka leaned back on the bar and addressed the Gran, a species known for their 3 eyes. What does Fieta have? Condemned prisoners, spices, slaves, good wine, but no Geth. What would those killing machines want with our place? The female slaves kept in the basement by the moon people. The Geth are only interested in factories, another mercenary chimed in. Fieta doesn't have a factory, unless you count Jeppin's water purification plant. Ha ha! The smugglers and mercenaries laughed heartily, drinking their wine without a care in the world. Hey, Camille, come out and dance, someone yelled, calling for the only dancer in the shabby bar to perform a striptease. Soon, a human woman with a slightly out-of-shape figure emerged from the backstage, wearing revealing clothes. She twisted and turned her way to the wine table, starting her vulgar dance. Wow, ha ha ha! Respect my beauty. Ha ha ha! The mercenaries laughed. In a place like Fieta, where danger lurked around every corner, they relished the luxury of going to the bar for a drink, stuffing money into the underwear of vulgar dancers in exchange for a wink or a blown kiss. They celebrated surviving another day and earning enough to enjoy themselves. Those who could afford to drink were the successful ones of the day. The losers were likely in the jungle outside Fieta City, being eaten by wild beasts. Suddenly, there was a muffled sound from the bar door. A figure knocked open the wooden door and staggered in. Boom! The door fell to the ground. Although it was just a decoration, the bar owner, Dekka, was furious. He picked up his modified blaster rifle and walked over, only to see that the person who had hit the door was the drunk who had been driven away earlier. I'll break your legs today, George. It's happening now! Dekka yelled angrily, moving to catch the drunk. Yes! Break his legs! Ha! Some drinkers cheered. However, before Dekka could reach him, the man collapsed to the ground with a thud. Everyone saw that the drunkard's back was drenched in blood, with a huge wound so deep that the bones were visible. They could even see his spine. Ah! The dancing girl, who had a better view, screamed and ran back to the backstage. The bartender, sensing something was wrong, turned off the loud music, plunging the bar into silence. Hey! An inhuman panting sound came from outside the door. Then a figure emerged from the darkness and stepped into the bar. This person was barely human. It wore no clothes, and its body was desiccated like a mummy that had been buried for hundreds of years. Energy nodes glowed all over its body, and its eyes were spherical, luminous bodies without eyelids or pupils. Pipes and wires protruded from a hole in its abdomen, crisscrossing its entire form. This grotesque and terrifying appearance sent chills down everyone's spines, and the implications were even more horrifying. Corpse puppets. Boom! The modified blaster in Dekka's hand fired. The overloaded energy beam exploded instantly, blasting the corpse puppet away. It's a corpse puppet! The Geth are coming! The drinkers who saw clearly screamed. No, no! My wife is still at home! A smuggler shouted, panic setting in. Dekka grabbed his weapon and sprinted towards the door. However, it wasn't long before the sound of gunshots echoed from outside, followed by a piercing scream. Damn it! Follow me to check it out! Dekka shouted urgently. A few brave mercenaries, weapons in hand, cautiously followed him out of the bar to investigate. The street outside was eerily silent. Most of the houses across the way were dark, and in the few that were still lit, strange shadows flickered ominously. What the hell is going on here? One of the mercenaries whispered. Earlier, the bar had been filled with loud music, and everyone was lost in their drinks and revelry, oblivious to the outside world. But now, stepping out, they realized something was terribly wrong. A few steps further, they saw the mercenary who had run out earlier lying lifeless on the ground. A corpse puppet was hunched over, tearing into his body. And it wasn't alone. There were movements in the surrounding darkness. "There's more than one corpse puppet. Fall back! Hurry!" Dekka's voice rose to a near-hysterical roar as he shouted the last word. A chilling hiss emanated from the darkness, and several corpse puppets emerged, charging towards them. End of this chapter. Chapter 1581, Killing the Dawn. "Go back! Go back to the bar!" Dekka shouted loudly. He picked up his modified blaster rifle and fired. Under the overload system he had privately modified, the explosive gas was further pressurized and heated before being released. Although it was an energy weapon, it fired with the power of a solid shotgun. A corpse puppet was immediately blown away by the powerful explosion of the blast energy gas. Dekka and the mercenaries hurried back to the bar and pressed the button to lower the metal door. Several smugglers had already thrown the drunk man's body out of the door. "It's a corpse puppet. Damn it! I don't know how many there are, but generally speaking, these things come in groups." Dekka cursed angrily. Before he could finish his sentence, there was a loud bang as the metal door was hit by a huge force, followed by the sound of bones breaking and flesh tearing outside the door. It was the corpse of the drunk being torn apart by the puppet. The mercenaries in the bar suddenly showed despair on their faces. "It's really the Geth! The Geth are coming!" one of them exclaimed. "We're dead!" another cried out. "No, they'll turn us into corpse puppets like that," someone else added. In the hearts of northern residents, the Geth were a terrible nightmare. They had no mercy, and their presence brought only death. On any captured planet, there would be no survivors. All of them would be pierced onto the dragon teeth and turned into terrifying corpse puppets. Although making corpse puppets was very uneconomical in terms of resource utilization and cost performance, the Geth were very aware of the psychological weakness of carbon-based creatures like humans. The existence of corpse puppets was meant to break the psychological defenses of these people. And without a doubt, they succeeded. Now, the residents of the entire northern region trembled in fear at the mere mention of the Geth. If there was any trace of Geth activity in any place, a large-scale refugee wave would immediately erupt on that planet, causing chaos for the military deployment of the Galactic Republic. The same was true for the people in the bar at this moment. They had already been very nervous when they heard about the corpse puppet earlier, but now that the corpse puppet appeared directly in front of them, they were terrified. At this time, the bar owner Dekka shouted, "All right, the corpse puppet is here. My bar is strong. Some of you go to the second floor to guard it." The mercenaries and smugglers who were drinking here were not all bloodthirsty people. After they were cornered, their adrenaline soared. They picked up their weapons with a roar and moved to their respective positions. Even when they went out to drink, they always carried weapons with them. "Duoku, come and get the good stuff I saved," Dekka shouted. The 2-meter-tall human black mercenary, Duoku, came over like a hill. He grinned and said, "It better be something strong enough." Dekka took him to the basement and pointed to a large wine barrel. Duoku moved the barrel, which was as tall as a person, to the side with a roar, revealing a small underground warehouse. Opening the warehouse door, they saw a heavy machine gun inside, along with a large number of assault rifles and bullets hanging on both sides. "What are these things?" Duoku's bull-like eyes widened. "Live ammunition weapons." "Haha, M247H heavy machine gun, air-cooled, air-operated, 12.7mm caliber, produced by Dawn Planet. After this thing is loaded with high-explosive bullets, its power is several times more powerful than our blaster rifles." Dekka laughed. Intensive gunshots could already be heard from the bar as the mercenaries started shooting. It seemed that corpse puppets were already attacking the bar. But Duoku looked at the heavy machine gun and said excitedly, "Let's give them hell!" The specifications of this thing make it a controlled product, and these weapons are all live ammunition? Ha ha ha! There's no weapon Santa Claus can't get, as long as the money is right. Kingsley next door even bought a Warthog SUV. Deka exclaimed. Those corpse puppets are just a bunch of walking dead. Attacking them with live ammunition can knock them out directly, and it's much more effective than laser guns. Luckily, I found a connection and bought a batch from Santa Claus as a collection. Then what are we waiting for? Doku grinned grimly. He walked over, picked up the heavy machine gun himself, grabbed a few bullet belts, and hung them around his neck. Old man, I need to borrow your balcony on the second floor. The balcony is yours, Deka replied, casually picking up a few other assault rifles and tossing them to the mercenaries nearby. Let's kill them. Doku went to the second floor and set up the heavy machine gun with a tripod. He could see countless bright spots shaking rapidly on the street. They were the eyes of the corpse puppets. In the darkness, it was impossible to tell how many corpse puppets were hidden. The other mercenaries in the bar were already shooting, the light of the blaster beams flickering as they hit the corpse puppets in the darkness, accompanied by bursts of angry roars. Come on, Geth bastards! Your grandpa is here, Doku shouted, grinning grimly. He casually grabbed a bullet and bit it in his mouth, then grabbed the handle of the heavy machine gun and pulled the trigger. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da! A long tongue of flame spewed from the muzzle of the heavy machine gun, and powerful 12.7mm caliber high-explosive bullets poured out. Several zombie puppets climbing the wall were immediately blown to pieces by the heavy machine gun's bullets. Come on, guys! Turn on the music! The most hilarious music! Ha! Deka picked up his modified blaster, went to the window, and fired at a puppet rushing towards him. At the same time, the music in the bar started again. Explosive death rock. The mercenaries' eyes were red as they fired wildly into the shadowy darkness outside. Under the reflection of the blaster beams and the tongues of gunfire, the bar's signboard flickered constantly, the Skull Cup. Inside this metal structure, a group of desperados were making their final frenzied resistance. They guarded every window of the bar, pouring out crazy firepower from inside. Dense bullets and blaster beams shot out from around the bar, lighting up the surrounding darkness. In the darkness, dozens of corpse puppets were running towards the bar, only to be repulsed by the mercenaries' firepower. But those corpse puppets didn't have life and didn't feel pain. They only knew the most primitive killing. They kept moving forward. Shot in the chest, they fell down, got up, and kept going. Shot in the thigh, they staggered and fell, struggled for a while, and crawled forward on the ground when they couldn't get up. It wasn't until their heads were shot and half blown off that the corpse puppets finally fell to the ground after walking a few more steps. A few corpse puppets reached the bar, clawing and bumping crazily with their bodies, trying to break open the metal building. But to no avail. They were quickly wiped out by the mercenaries' firepower. However, farther away, more and more corpse puppets were swarming, almost blocking the street. Their faces were ferocious and terrifying, their withered bodies covered with energy pipes, shining with dots of energy light. Their eyes, without pupils and eyelids, were just balls of light, indifferent and lifeless. They rushed towards every place where gunshots were heard, drowning the area until there was dead silence. In the surrounding buildings, some places were still shooting to resist, with endless roars, screams, and gunshots. You could even see a big fat man standing on a roof with a flamethrower, desperately trying to hold back the tide of corpse puppets. A raging fire erupted, igniting all the corpse puppets that charged forward. As the puppets turned to ashes one by one, the fat man laughed wildly. However, more and more corpse puppets surrounded him. Finally, a small, agile puppet, resembling those made by the Ishitib people, rushed up from behind. While the fat man was distracted, its sharp claws slashed through the fuel tank on his back. Boom! The high-pressure fuel tank exploded, transforming into a powerful incendiary bomb that devoured everything around it. Yet this did not halt the relentless advance of the countless corpse puppets. More and more of them surged forward. A Warthog-armed off-road vehicle rampaged through the streets, with a person inside manning the vehicle-mounted machine gun, firing wildly. Despite their efforts, the sheer number of corpse puppets eventually blocked the Warthog's path. The out-of-control vehicle crashed into the wall of a nearby building and was soon surrounded by the horde. In the distance, countless corpse puppets had already encircled the small town, swarming over the hills and plains. Among the tide of puppets were not only ordinary ones made by humans or humanoid races, but also advanced versions that had undergone further transformations. Some of these high-level puppets were enormous, with plasma cannons implanted in their hands, providing long-range firepower. Others wore the composite alloy armor of the Galactic Republic's clone soldiers, though without helmets. These zombie puppets wielded plasma rifles and moved with agility almost indistinguishable from normal people. Several civilian spaceships, piloted by bounty hunters, flew overhead. The hatches opened, and the occupants roared as they fired their weapons wildly. However, many civilian ships chose to take off, attempting to escape the planet that was descending into chaos. Those that tried to flee were soon targeted by insect-shaped Geth spaceships, leading to deadly mid-air chases. Some Geth transport ships flew towards hidden valleys and forests outside the city. In these secluded areas, Geth advance bases had been quietly established, with rows of dense dragon teeth installed. Corpses of various races were impaled on these dragon teeth, their blood staining the ground red and filling the air with the stench of death. As the Geth transport planes landed, their hatches opened, and a large number of fresh corpses were unloaded. Geth individuals methodically impaled these new corpses on the dragon's teeth, the blood flowing down and soaking the earth. Finished zombie puppets continuously descended from the dragon's teeth, joining the ever-growing wave of the walking dead. These millions of corpse puppets marched tirelessly along the main road, heading straight for the largest city on the planet, Fieta, Darafa City. In Darafa City, with its millions of inhabitants, the flames of war had been ignited. Countless corpse puppets launched a sudden attack, prompting the underworld families and mercenary groups in the city to take up arms in resistance. Those who could flee did so immediately. Those who couldn't escape by spaceship armed themselves and prepared for a final stand in their homes. They knew that trying to leave the city by any means other than a spaceship would be futile. Being hunted by corpse puppets in the vast outskirts would only lead to a worse fate. In this modern city, the corpse puppet army advanced from the outskirts, killing every living person they encountered. They collected the bodies and sent them to. In the rear, more corpse puppets were being created. In the big cities, the skies were filled with fierce battles. Spaceships darted everywhere, some fired at the ground, while others attempted to escape, only to be quickly targeted by Geth fighters. Hover vehicles buzzed mid-air, their occupants shouting and fighting wildly, almost everyone with red eyes from the chaos. On one such hovering car, a driver maneuvered while two others roared and fired their guns, dropping fragmentation grenades below. Suddenly, a corpse puppet burst from a nearby tall building's window, landing precisely on the hovering car. With a swift claw, it knocked one of the shooters out of the vehicle, sending them plummeting to the ground. Another person struck the puppet's head with the butt of their gun, but the Reacher merely shook it off, claws flailing as it lunged again. Amid the struggle, the car lost control and plummeted towards the ground. Boom! The car crashed, sending a dozen corpse puppets flying. The street was already teeming with these grotesque creatures. Above, a V-19 Riptide light fighter, marked with the Galactic Republic's gear logo, was desperately fleeing. Several Geth fighters pursued, their ion cannons firing relentlessly. The fighter couldn't evade in time and was struck, its wings exploding. Spiraling down, it crashed into a tall building, erupting into flames. Headquarters! This is Hawkeye 117. The Geth are invading the planet Theta, requesting immediate assistance. Repeat, the Geth have invaded Theta. We need reinforcements. The urgent communication was sent across light years via hyperspace. This is the 9th Army headquarters. We have received your message and will dispatch the fleet immediately. Please maintain your position. In the outer orbit of Theta, an armed Consul-class cruiser patrolled. The 120-meter-long vessel had its hangar platform open, with several V-19 Torrent light fighters taking off and landing. As the cruiser neared one of Theta's satellites, its sensors detected a Geth squadron hiding in the satellite's close orbit. End of this chapter. Chapter 1582, Battle of Theta Extermination, Part 2. Theta Galaxy, Outer Space. A flash of white light illuminated the void as a fleet emerged from hyperspace. The fleet consisted of 10 Hunter-class battlecruisers, 5 Cheer-class assault landing ships, 10 Arcatens-class light cruisers, and 30 CSS-1 Republic-class transport ships. Hawkeye 117, please respond. This is the 7th Task Force of the 9th Army of the Republic. Hawkeye 117, do you copy? The communicator aboard the fleet's flagship repeatedly called out to the spaceship that had been sent to investigate earlier, but there was no response. Report, sensors have detected the wreckage of a spaceship. It's confirmed to be Hawkeye 117, announced the radar operator. Fleet Commander Lieutenant General Henderson walked over to the sensor display. The screen showed the wreckage of an armed console-class cruiser floating in the orbit of Theta Planet 1's satellite. The debris had been captured by the satellite's gravity and was expected to fall in a few days. Where's the Geth warship? Henderson asked, frowning. No sign of it so far, the radar operator replied, shaking his head. General, according to reports from the ground on Theta, the number of corpse puppets on the planet has reached millions. The city of Drawfa is under attack. If Drawfa falls, the capital city, Chinesti, will be directly threatened, the adjutant informed. Lieutenant General Henderson inquired, where did these corpse puppets come from? Are there any other directions? The adjutant opened a holographic map of the planet, marking the cities of Drawfa and Chinesti. He then drew a line to the south. This is the route the corpse puppets are taking. Preliminary reconnaissance indicates they originated from the southern mountains, where there appears to be a Geth base manufacturing these puppets. Additionally, dozens of villages in that direction have lost contact, with a total population exceeding 500,000. So, the Geth must have transported millions of corpse puppets from elsewhere. How did they manage to get so many spaceships? Henderson questioned. They likely used captured civilian spaceships. The Geth transport the corpse puppets haphazardly, cramming as many as possible into the cabins and then dumping them from mid-air like garbage, the adjutant explained, showing video footage of the Geth's methods. The video displayed a dilapidated civilian transport ship hovering above a forest. The hatch opened, and corpse puppets rained down. The transport ship, no longer than 50 meters, had been stuffed with hundreds of these puppets. The video also showed an anti-aircraft missile being fired at the transport ship, shooting it down. Lieutenant General Henderson sighed. We need to locate the Geth base in those mountains and send a bomber formation to destroy it. Then, we must deploy ground troops to defend the planet Theta. The gangs and mercenary groups on Theta may not welcome our assistance, the adjutant noted. They've rejected our garrison requests multiple times. In the face of the Geth, survival is the only priority, Henderson said sternly. As organic intelligent life, we cannot afford to lose to a mechanical race. It would mean our extinction. From the perspective of the Galactic Republic, if we fail to stop the Geth on Theta, more planets will suffer. I understand, the adjutant nodded in agreement. Henderson then focused on the holographic map of Theta, enlarging a specific area. We need to. Part 1. Strategic Deployment. First, send a siege force to build a fixed defensive position in Chinesti City. Then, deploy clone troops to enter Delaware City from the north to block the advance of the corpse puppets. Additionally, we need to land at this location. There is a fuel depot in this town. We can ignite it to form a burning belt to block more corpse puppets from advancing. Finally, send an elite ARC clone troop to locate the Jeski base and direct our bombers for precision bombing to ensure nothing slips through the cracks. Yes, sir. General, the signal of the Geth fleet has been detected. There are 4 large warships, 12 medium-sized warships, and more than 400 fighter jets, the radar operator reported. Action. For life, Lieutenant General Henderson commanded. Part 2. Aerial Assault. 3 Y-wing bombers of the Galactic Republic flew across the sky. Below in a town, countless zombie puppets raised their heads and let out terrible roars. However, what they faced were cluster bombs dropped directly by the Y-wing bombers. Boom, 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 boom. The cluster bombs split into hundreds of sub-bombs in midair, turning the entire block into a sea of flames. On the ground, some corpse puppets equipped with plasma cannons raised their hands and fired, but their attacks couldn't even touch the bombers. In the sky, a burning cloud of fire descended as the massive Chira-class assault landing ship appeared. The hangar platform unfolded, and hundreds of LAI assault transport boats, fully loaded with clone soldiers, took off and flew towards the town. Part 3. Ground Invasion. The spherical ground-to-ground laser turrets and rocket launchers equipped on the LA assault transport boats fired relentlessly, conducting another strafing attack on the ground. The transports then landed, and the hatches opened. Clone troopers, wearing white polymer alloy armor and holding blaster rifles, jumped off the transports even before they had fully stopped. These clone troopers were all Kamino clones who had been decommissioned. The Confederation of Independent Systems had deployed genetic weapons on the front lines. After the last attack on Kamino, the Confederation had obtained genetic samples of the clone soldiers and developed weapons that could kill clones on a large scale. Although the Kamino clone soldiers were powerful, they could no longer fight against the Separatists. Part 4. The Geth Threat. In the Northern Star area, the Geth began to wreak havoc. After discussions with the Supreme Strategic Command, it was decided to deploy all the Kamino clone soldiers who were scheduled to retire into the battle in the northern border. This was a race between organic life and inorganic life. Tang Xiao couldn't provide genetic weapons to the Geth because it was unnecessary, and he understood the threat of the Geth better than anyone else. He was always on guard against them. Although it was said that the ultimate goal of the Geth was to build a star-level superhost for themselves and integrate all their individuals into it, who could be sure that the Geth in this Star Wars world wouldn't think otherwise? Even if the Geth did achieve their goal, a star-level superhost could bring unpredictable changes to countless Geth individuals. What if they suddenly decided to act against organic life? Therefore, Tang Xiao had several different plans to counter the Geth. Chapter 1583, Death Rock. In a well-coordinated formation, 35 clone troopers dismounted from the L-8I assault transport ship and immediately opened fire on the few sporadic zombie puppets in front of them. The crimson beams from their blasters exploded upon impact, one shot hitting a hole in a zombie puppet's abdomen, blasting it into two pieces. Suddenly, a terrible roar echoed from nearby buildings, and more zombie puppets rushed out. However, the clone soldiers remained unfazed. The sergeant major, identifiable by his green armband, made a few hand gestures, and the soldiers quickly dispersed, taking strategic positions. Their blaster rifles fired with precision, not only hitting their targets but also keeping an eye on their surroundings. Any zombie puppets attempting to sneak up on them were swiftly shot in the head. One of the clone troopers took out a scanning device and surveyed the area. "Is this the place?" the clone sergeant asked. "That's right. The fuel depot is 300 meters ahead, and one of the pipelines runs right under our feet," the trooper replied. "Clear this area, then call in the engineering team," the sergeant ordered. "Move as a team. Clear all buildings within 30 minutes. "Yes, sir." The clone troopers immediately split into groups of 5 and entered the buildings. Gunfire erupted, but quickly subsided. Against these elite Kamino clone soldiers, the ordinary zombie puppets were merely living targets. One group of clone troopers approached a small 2-story building. The sight around it was enough to move even the hard-hearted soldiers. The wreckage of at least hundreds of zombie puppets was piled up around the building, which was riddled with bullet holes. Scattered corpses indicated a fierce resistance when the zombie puppets invaded. A clone trooper looked up and read the sign. "This is a bar called Skull Cup." "I hope they actually make cups out of skulls," another soldier joked. They examined the bar's gate, which had a large gap blown open and filled with the remains of zombie puppets. Without hesitation, a soldier threw a grenade through the gap. The explosion sent the wreckage flying, revealing the door. 2 large zombie puppets lay at the entrance, plasma cannons stitched and transplanted into their hands. A soldier shook his head. "Poor guys. If it weren't for a few big ones, they might have held out longer." Inside the bar, the scene was chaotic, with the remains of zombie puppets and mercenaries scattered everywhere. Amid the smell of burnt flesh and blood, there was a strong scent of alcohol. Countless empty wine bottles littered the ground. "If this is a battlefield, I'd like it," a clone soldier laughed. Raising his hand, to shoot a zombie puppet on the stairs in the head. They continued to scour the bar, ensuring no threats remained. When the engineering team arrived, even one or two zombie puppets could fatally injure the unarmed workers. A jukebox on one side of the bar was sparking, with the remains of a puppet inserted headfirst into it. Although the machine was destroyed, the jukebox on the side still worked, playing a rock song called Crazy to Death. On the second floor, more zombie puppets were scattered, with a few still wandering. Near the balcony, the body of a burly black human lay, clutching a heavy machine gun in his dead hands. Bullet casings were strewn all around him, a testament to his last stand. Beside him, a soldier remarked, "These guys should be mercenaries and smugglers. I recognized several wanted criminals from the holographic network." "In front of the Geth, a wanted criminal and the president of a country are the same," another soldier replied. The sergeant approached the blackened body, examining the scars and the half-collapsed balcony nearby, littered with corpse puppets. He raised his hand and closed his eyes. He killed quite a few corpse puppets. A very powerful guy. "Brute Bull Doku," said a clone soldier, checking his personal terminal. "The bounty on his head is over 30,000 credits. He's responsible for at least 17 murders and more than 40 counts of intentional injury." "The last madness of a pack of beasts," another soldier muttered. "Sir, there's a situation downstairs," someone called from below. The sergeant led the team to the basement, where the strong smell of alcohol permeated the air. The floor was soaked with spilled liquor, and several overturned wine racks blocked their path. Beyond the wine racks lay the bodies of mercenaries entangled with the remains of corpse puppets, evidence of a fierce final battle. In the deepest part of the basement, an old man sat slumped against the wall, clutching a modified blaster rifle that had exploded in his hands. His body was covered in blood and burn marks, clearly injured by the blaster. They knocked down all the wine racks and used the smell of alcohol to confuse the corpse puppet's senses. "Quite clever," the sergeant observed. "He's still alive," a soldier said, kneeling beside the old man to check his vitals. "But he won't last long. Should we give him a shot of epinephrine?" "There's no need to waste it on a dying man. Our next battle will be more difficult," the sergeant replied, shaking his head. With great effort, the old man, Deka, raised his hand and pointed to a small warehouse door nearby, nodding slightly as if to indicate something important. A clone trooper walked over and opened the warehouse door, revealing a small space littered with bullets. In the middle, a terrified human dancer was curled up in a ball, trembling. The sergeant sighed, understanding the situation. At the last moment, these desperados chose to protect the only unarmed person in this bar, the dancer. He looked at the dying old man and the corpses at the door. No matter what kind of criminals these people were before, at least this time they did something good. Deka gasped, struggling to speak. The clone sergeant knelt beside him. "Speak, old man. At least someone will hear your last words. We will send this dancer to safety. What else do you want to say?" With the last of his strength, Deka's lips moved and he spat out a few words. "Go to your fucking Galactic Republic." End of this chapter. Chapter 584. A storm is brewing, and the sky is ablaze. The planet Fieta, the city of Drafa. Boom, boom. Explosions echoed through the main roads of the city, obliterating countless corpse puppets under the relentless firepower. LAI assault transports descended, deploying swarms of clone troopers who immediately moved into position without a word. On all the main passages, gangsters and mercenary groups had already established defensive lines using cars and various debris. Wealthy and influential individuals had even recruited construction teams to further fortify these defenses with machinery like bulldozers. For the ordinary corpse puppets, these obstacles were insurmountable. When the clone troopers began their landing, the gangsters and mercenaries, believing they had the situation under control, showed no kindness to the arriving soldiers. Some even threatened to kill the clone troopers along with the corpse puppets. However, these gangsters were still somewhat self-aware and dared not truly conflict with the battle-hardened clone soldiers. Boom, boom, boom. The addition of the regular army's firepower turned the entire city into a war zone. Under the combined assault of AV-7 self-propelled artillery and Y-wing bombers, The corpse puppets were unable to form any effective resistance and were blown to pieces. In just a few tens of minutes, hundreds of thousands of corpse puppets were annihilated. Witnessing this, the gangsters, smugglers, and mercenaries decided not to join the Galactic Republic's army. They withdrew from the front lines and retreated towards the planetary capital, Chinesti City. These lawless individuals understood that even if the Geth attack was repelled, the Galactic Republic's army would not leave, signaling the end of their reign. However, at that moment, the behavior of the corpse puppets suddenly changed. They began hiding in buildings, ceasing their direct attacks. "Damn it! These puppets are all hiding!" A clone soldier cursed as he observed the battle through binoculars. The clone commander, identifiable by the blue armband on his battle armor, also surveyed the city with binoculars. His tone grew solemn. "At least half of Draffa has fallen. If these corpse puppets hide like this, it will take months to clear them out. Evacuate as many civilians as possible and prepare to blow up the whole city. I'm worried they have other plans. Don't forget, we haven't seen the Geth yet," the clone trooper replied. "What about the other directions?" the clone commander asked. "The engineering team heading to Chinesti City to build a defense line was blocked. The locals don't want us to start construction in the city or move out of their homes. They're calling our actions an invasion," the clone soldier said reluctantly. "What's the status of the blocking force?" "They've already controlled the town, and the operation is going relatively smoothly. The fuel depot has stored more than 4,000 tons of fuel. The engineering team is creating a 5 to 10 kilometer wide combustion zone. If they detect more zombies, they'll detonate the fuel to block the attack," the clone soldier reported. However, the teams sent to find the Jeski base haven't responded yet. "I have a very bad feeling about this," the clone commander said solemnly. "Report to the fleet. If necessary, we may need to conduct low-intensity orbital bombardment of the general area. Prepare to transfer the Cheerer-class assault landing ship." "I don't think General Henderson would take kindly to that," the clone soldier began, but the commander cut him off. "We don't have a choice. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. We need to be prepared for anything," the commander said, his voice filled with resolve. The clone soldier expressed his concern. "The risk of using the Cheer class is high. No one knows what's hidden in the mountains and jungles." At that moment, the signal soldier hurried over and reported, "Sir, more Geth warships have been detected in the planet's outer orbit. General Henderson is leading the fleet to intercept them. He wants us to be ready in case the Geth have other plans." "Damn it! The Geth really do have other plans," the clone commander cursed. "Notify all units to further strengthen the defense and organize the front line. Prepare for battle at any moment." Before he could finish his sentence, a sudden red light in the distance almost ignited the entire sky. A few seconds later, a series of violent explosions erupted, shaking the ground. "It's the interdiction force. They detonated the fuel warehouse," the communications soldier exclaimed. He quickly picked up the communicator and called out, "Interdiction force. This is the 204th Legion. Please respond. Report your situation immediately." However, the communication was filled with noisy static. It seemed like someone was trying to speak, but the continuous explosions drowned out their words. "Units ready for battle. The Geth are attacking," the clone commander shouted. In the sky, 2 Cheer-class assault landing ships began to lower their altitude. They turned on the powerful searchlights on their bellies, illuminating the direction of the interdiction force. However, all that could be seen was a sea of flames, obscuring any clear view. Because friendly troops were in that direction, the Cheer-class ships dared not fire rashly. Instead, they launched a formation of fighter jets to check the situation. Suddenly, hundreds of Geth fighters appeared in the sky, flying viciously towards the Republic's fighter formation. "Bastard! It's the Geth fighters," someone shouted. "They were hiding in the woods before," another voice added. "Attack! Attack! Kill them!" Boom! Boom! A Republic V-19 Riptide light fighter was hit by an ion cannon during the dogfight and exploded into a ball of fire. The Cheer-class ship's close defense artillery also began firing, filling the sky with lasers and missiles. However, the Geth fighters were relentless. Their superior flight performance and reaction speed overwhelmed the Republic pilots, and they shot down all the V-19 fighters in the formation within minutes. Then, like a swarm of wasps, they pounced on the Cheer-class ships. The situation worsened as several Geth frigates, each tens of meters long, joined the battle. After being hit by dozens of powerful ion cannons on their shields, the two Cheer-class assault landing ships had to start climbing to avoid fighting at ultra-low altitudes. The voice of the Republic fleet came through the communication. "We have detected Geth frigates entering the planet's atmosphere. They were previously hidden among the wreckage of warships in outer orbit. We have sent fighter formations to support. Hold on."